Welcome to PsyCoreTheory. For the next few hours, you'll discover the hidden psychology behind intelligence, emotions, relationships, and human behavior. When Daniel was 16, everyone believed they already knew how his life would turn out. Teachers called him gifted. His parents proudly told relatives that he was the smartest child in the family. He never needed hours to understand difficult concepts. While others memorized lessons, Daniel understood them. While others searched for answers, he asked better questions. It felt like the world had already decided his future. One day, people would say, "You're going to be incredibly successful." For years, he believed them. Why wouldn't he? Intelligence was supposed to guarantee success. At least, that's what everyone told him. But 10 years later, something unexpected happened. One quiet evening, Daniel was lying on his bed, scrolling through social media when he saw a familiar face. It was one of his old classmates. The same classmate who used to borrow his notes before every exam. The same person who barely passed mathematics. Today, that person owned a growing business, had thousands of customers, and was celebrating buying his first luxury car. Daniel kept scrolling. Another classmate had become a successful designer. Another was traveling across Europe. Another had just bought a house. Suddenly, a strange feeling settled in his chest. It wasn't jealousy. It was confusion. A question kept repeating itself inside his mind. If I was always the smartest one, why am I the one who's falling behind? Maybe you've asked yourself that question too. Maybe people have always told you that you're intelligent. Maybe you understand things faster than others. You notice details people completely ignore. You think deeply before making decisions. Sometimes your mind refuses to stop thinking. Even when you're trying to sleep, it's still analyzing conversations, imagining different futures, replaying old mistakes, and preparing for problems that haven't even happened yet. People admire intelligence from the outside, but they rarely see what it feels like from the inside. Sometimes having a mind that never stops thinking can feel less like a gift, and more like a prison. We've all been taught the same idea since childhood. Study hard, become smart, and success will naturally follow. It sounds reasonable. It even sounds fair. But real life tells a very different story. Some of the brightest people struggle for years while others, who were never considered extraordinary, quietly build successful careers, healthy relationships, and meaningful lives. So what changed? Did intelligence suddenly stop mattering? Not at all. The problem isn't intelligence itself. The problem is something much deeper. Psychology has discovered that the human brain often turns our greatest strength into our biggest weakness without us even realizing it. Imagine standing at the entrance of a huge forest. Somewhere on the other side is the life you've always dreamed about. There are dozens of paths leading forward. Most people choose one, accept that they might make mistakes, and begin walking. If they take a wrong turn, they simply adjust and continue. But an intelligent mind behaves differently. Instead of seeing a single path, it sees every possible outcome. What if this road is wrong? What if another path is shorter? What if I waste years making the wrong decision? What if I fail? What if I regret it forever? Every possibility creates another question, and every question creates another reason to wait. Without realizing it, the person who was supposed to move first becomes the only one still standing at the starting line. This is one of the strangest paradoxes of intelligence. The smarter your mind becomes, the better it becomes at predicting problems. At first, that sounds like an incredible advantage. But eventually, your brain becomes so good at finding risks that it starts seeing danger in every opportunity. You don't avoid action because you're lazy. You avoid action because your mind keeps searching for certainty. It convinces you that if you think just a little longer, you'll eventually discover the perfect decision. But life has never rewarded perfect decisions. It rewards imperfect action repeated consistently. Psychologists call this invisible trap analysis paralysis. Ironically, it doesn't feel like fear. It feels like preparation. You tell yourself you'll start after learning one more skill, reading one more book, watching one more video, creating one better plan. Days quietly become months, and months slowly become years. Then one day you look around and wonder why everyone else seems so much further ahead, even though you know you're capable of more. But here's the shocking part. Analysis paralysis isn't even the biggest reason intelligent people struggle. There's another psychological trap that's far more dangerous because it disguises itself as ambition. And once it takes control of your mind, it becomes almost impossible to recognize that you're no longer chasing success, you're simply chasing the feeling of being ready. The second trap is even more dangerous because it doesn't feel like a weakness. It feels like a strength. It feels like discipline. It feels like ambition. In reality, it's something psychologists call perfectionism. Most people misunderstand perfectionism. They think it's about having high standards, but that's only the surface. Real perfectionism is the fear of making an imperfect first step. And intelligent people are far more likely to fall into this trap because their minds can clearly imagine every possible mistake before it happens. While others simply begin, they keep editing, improving, preparing, and waiting for the perfect moment that never arrives. Imagine a young woman named Emma. Since childhood, everyone admired her intelligence. She dreamed of writing a book, and she genuinely had the talent to do it. Every day she researched storytelling techniques, studied famous authors, watched interviews, and filled notebooks with incredible ideas. She promised herself that she would only begin when she felt completely ready. 1 year passed. Then another. Her notebooks became thicker, but the first chapter of her book was still blank. One afternoon, she walked into a bookstore and found a novel written by someone she knew from college. She remembered helping that person with assignments because they weren't nearly as talented as she was. Yet somehow, that person had finished a book while she was still perfecting an outline. In that moment, Emma realized something heartbreaking. Knowledge had made her better, but perfectionism had stopped her from becoming anything at all. That's the cruel irony of intelligence. The more you know, the easier it becomes to find flaws in your own work. Before anyone else can criticize you, your own mind has already done it 100 times. You convince yourself that your idea isn't good enough, your skills aren't good enough, your timing isn't right, or someone else could probably do it better. You call it being realistic, but most of the time, it's simply fear wearing the mask of logic. Your brain isn't protecting your success. It's protecting your ego from the possibility of failure. And this leads to another hidden psychological truth. Many intelligent people slowly build their entire identity around being the smart one. Since childhood they've been rewarded for getting the right answers, solving difficult problems, and being different from everyone else. Over time, intelligence stops being something they have and becomes who they believe they are. That's where the real danger begins. Because once your identity depends on always looking intelligent, failure no longer feels like a lesson. It feels like losing a part of yourself. Instead of seeing mistakes as feedback, you see them as proof that maybe you were never as capable as people believed. That's why some incredibly intelligent people never take the opportunities they secretly dream about. They don't apply for the job. They don't start the business. They don't publish their work. They don't speak up in meetings. From the outside, it looks like hesitation. But inside their mind, it's self-protection. They're trying to avoid the emotional pain of discovering they might not be exceptional after all. Ironically, the people who achieve extraordinary things usually aren't the ones who fear failure the least. They're the ones who stop treating failure as a personal attack. They understand that every mistake teaches something success never could. Research in psychology consistently shows that confidence doesn't come before action. It comes because of action. Every small risk you survive teaches your brain that uncertainty isn't as dangerous as it imagined. Every imperfect attempt makes the next one a little easier. Confidence isn't built by thinking about success. It's built by collecting evidence that you can recover from failure. And that's exactly what many intelligent people accidentally deny themselves. They spend so much time preparing for life that they never actually experience enough of it to become truly confident. So if you've ever wondered why someone with less talent, less knowledge, or even less intelligence seems to move ahead faster than you, the answer may have nothing to do with ability. They simply chose progress over perfection. While one person waited for certainty, the other accepted uncertainty and kept moving. And in the long run, movement almost always beats intelligence that never leaves the starting line. But even this isn't the deepest reason intelligent people struggle. There's one final psychological pattern that quietly shapes almost every decision they make. It explains why some brilliant people spend their entire lives chasing success without ever feeling successful. And once you understand it, you'll never look at intelligence the same way again. But even after understanding analysis paralysis, perfectionism, and the fear of failure, one question still remained. Why do so many intelligent people achieve impressive things, yet still feel as if they're falling behind? Why does success seem to satisfy some people while leaving others constantly chasing more? The answer lies in a psychological pattern that is far more subtle than the others because it doesn't stop you from succeeding. Instead, it quietly steals your ability to ever feel successful. Psychologists often refer to this as the arrival fallacy, the belief that happiness, confidence, and fulfillment are waiting somewhere in the future. Your mind quietly whispers, "I'll finally be happy after I get promoted. I'll finally feel successful after I earn more money. I'll finally relax after I achieve one more goal." At first, this way of thinking feels motivating, but over time it becomes a prison. Every time you reach one destination, your brain immediately creates another. The finish line keeps moving, and without realizing it, your entire life becomes a race toward a place that never truly exists. Daniel had been living inside this invisible trap for years. Every achievement he reached felt exciting for only a short time before his attention shifted towards someone who seemed to be doing even better. When he received a better job, he noticed a friend earning more money. When he finally bought something he had dreamed of owning, he saw someone else living in a bigger house or driving a better car. Even when people praised his intelligence, he couldn't enjoy it because his mind was already comparing his life with someone else's success. Social media made the feeling even worse. Every evening he watched old classmates celebrating promotions, businesses, vacations, weddings, and achievements. Slowly, he convinced himself that everyone else had figured life out while he was somehow falling behind. What Daniel never realized was that he wasn't comparing his real life with other people's real lives. He was comparing his ordinary days with the best moments they chose to share. One weekend, while helping his parents clean an old cupboard, Daniel discovered a notebook from his school days. Curious, he opened it and began reading. Inside were dreams written by the 16-year-old boy who believed the future would solve every problem. On one page he had written, "One day I hope I can earn enough to support my parents." Daniel looked toward the living room where his parents were smiling and talking together. Without even noticing it, he had already fulfilled that dream years ago. A few pages later he found another sentence. "I hope I find a career that makes my family proud." That dream had also quietly become reality. Then he reached the final page and read one simple line, "I just hope I don't waste my life." Daniel closed the notebook and sat silently. For the first time in years, he wasn't thinking about the future. He was thinking about the teenager who had written those words. That 16-year-old version of himself would have looked at his current life and called it a dream, yet Daniel had spent years treating it like a disappointment. In that moment, he understood something that changed him forever. He hadn't been failing. He had simply forgotten to notice his own progress. His intelligence had become so focused on everything that was missing that it had completely ignored everything he had already built. Psychology tells us that the human brain naturally pays more attention to what it lacks than to what it already has. Thousands of years ago, this helped human beings survive because constantly searching for problems kept them alive. But in modern life, the same survival mechanism often convinces us that we're never successful enough, never productive enough, and never good enough. The more intelligent the mind becomes, the easier it is to imagine a better version of reality. But when your imagination is always focused on a future that doesn't exist yet, you slowly lose the ability to appreciate the life you're already living. As Daniel drove home that evening, one simple question kept repeating in his mind. Instead of asking himself, "When will I finally become successful?" he found himself asking a completely different question. It sounded almost too simple to matter, but over the following months, that one question would quietly transform the direction of his entire life. The question Daniel kept asking himself was surprisingly simple: did I move forward today? He no longer measured his life by promotions, salary, or how successful other people appeared to be. Instead, he measured it by whether he had taken one meaningful step forward. Some days that step was finishing an important task. Other days it was learning a new skill, having a difficult conversation, or simply doing something he had been avoiding for months. The step didn't have to be perfect. It only had to be real. At first, nothing around him seemed to change. His job was the same. His income was the same. His life looked almost identical from the outside. But something inside him was changing. For the first time in years, he wasn't waiting for confidence before taking action. He was allowing action to create confidence. Psychology has repeatedly shown that confidence is rarely the starting point. It is the result of repeated experiences that teach your brain, "I survived yesterday, so I can handle today." Every small action became another piece of evidence that he was capable of moving forward, even without certainty. As the months passed, Daniel slowly stopped chasing perfection. He stopped asking whether every decision was the best possible decision and started asking whether it was simply the next right step. Some of his ideas failed. Some opportunities disappeared. Some plans didn't work the way he had imagined. But something unexpected happened. Every failure hurt a little less than the one before because he no longer saw failure as proof that he wasn't intelligent. He saw it as proof that he was finally participating in his own life. The fear that had controlled him for years slowly lost its power because it could no longer keep him standing still. Ironically, people eventually began noticing the changes. Friends started saying that Daniel seemed more confident. Colleagues admired how quickly he made decisions. New opportunities appeared, not because he had suddenly become smarter, but because he had finally stopped letting his intelligence become an excuse to avoid uncertainty. From the outside, it looked as if his life had changed overnight. In reality, it was built on hundreds of ordinary days when he chose progress over perfection and action over endless preparation. That's the part of success most people never see. We notice someone's achievements, but we almost never witness the countless small decisions that quietly created them. Perhaps that's the greatest misunderstanding about intelligence. We spend so much time trying to become smarter that we forget success has never belonged only to the smartest people. It belongs to those who are willing to act before they feel completely ready. Knowledge is powerful, but knowledge without action remains potential. Potential may impress people for a while, but consistent action is what transforms potential into reality. The world isn't changed by the people who always have the perfect plan. It's changed by the people who begin before they have all the answers and continue learning along the way. So if you've ever looked around and wondered why people with less talent, fewer qualifications, or lower intelligence seem to move ahead faster than you, maybe you've been asking yourself the wrong question. Instead of asking, "Am I smart enough?" ask yourself, "What am I still waiting for?" Because the opportunity you've been hoping for may not be waiting for you to become more intelligent. It may simply be waiting for you to take the first imperfect step. And maybe that's the real lesson hidden inside Daniel's story. Intelligence was never his biggest problem, and it was never his greatest advantage either. His greatest advantage appeared the moment he stopped trying to predict every outcome and started trusting himself enough to move forward anyway. The future he had spent years waiting for didn't begin on the day he became smarter. It began on the ordinary day he finally stopped waiting. Now think about your own life. Is there a dream you've been postponing because you don't feel ready yet? Is there a decision you've delayed because you're searching for certainty that may never come? Let me know in the comments. Sometimes admitting it is the first step toward changing it. And if you enjoy stories that reveal the hidden psychology behind success, failure, and human behavior, subscribe to the channel, because the next story might explain a part of your own mind that you've never understood before. Have you ever met someone who could solve almost every problem except the ones happening inside their own mind? They always seem calm, logical, and incredibly intelligent. People admire them for their sharp thinking, their ability to stay rational under pressure, and the way they always seem to have the right answer. But when it comes to understanding their own emotions, everything suddenly becomes much more complicated. They overthink conversations, replay small mistakes for days, and often struggle to explain what they're actually feeling. It almost seems unfair. How can someone who understands the world so well have such a hard time understanding themselves? Take Ryan, for example. Throughout school, everyone considered him the smartest student in the class. He graduated with top grades, built a successful career, and became the person everyone turned to whenever they needed advice. His colleagues admired his intelligence, and his friends trusted his judgment. From the outside, his life looked almost perfect, but there was a side of Ryan that no one ever saw. Every night, after everyone else had gone to bed, his mind refused to slow down. A simple conversation from earlier in the day would replay over and over in his head. If someone sounded slightly different during a phone call, he wondered whether they were secretly upset with him. If a friend replied with a short message, he questioned whether he had done something wrong. While most people forgot these moments within minutes, Ryan carried them for days. The strange part was that he knew he was overthinking. He could even explain exactly why his thoughts weren't logical. Yet knowing the answer didn't stop the feelings. His intelligence helped him analyze his emotions, but it didn't always help him experience them in a healthy way. Psychologists have observed that intelligence and emotional awareness are not the same thing. In fact, people with highly analytical minds often process emotions differently. Instead of simply feeling an emotion and letting it pass, they unconsciously try to solve it like a puzzle. They search for hidden meanings, patterns, and explanations behind every interaction. Unfortunately, emotions don't always follow logic. The more your brain looks for certainty, the more uncomfortable uncertainty becomes. That's why some intelligent people spend hours analyzing a 5-minute conversation. They aren't weak. They aren't dramatic. Their minds are simply doing what they've always been trained to do: analyze everything. And that's where the real problem begins. Because while analysis can solve difficult problems, it can also trap you inside your own thoughts. Instead of experiencing life, you begin observing it. Instead of expressing your emotions, you start investigating them. And before you realize it, you become disconnected from the very feelings you're trying so hard to understand. In today's video, we'll explore the fascinating psychology behind this paradox. We'll uncover why some highly intelligent people struggle with emotions, why overthinking becomes a habit, and most importantly, how understanding this pattern can help you build a healthier relationship with your own mind. Ryan eventually noticed a pattern. Every time something emotional happened, his first reaction wasn't to feel it, it was to analyze it. When a friend canceled plans, he didn't simply think, "They're probably busy." Instead, his mind immediately started collecting evidence. Had they been acting differently lately? Was there something he said last week? Were they slowly pulling away? Within minutes, his brain had created 10 different explanations, most of them negative. Ironically, none of them were based on facts. This is one of the biggest psychological differences between highly analytical people and everyone else. Their minds are trained to search for patterns. That ability helps them solve difficult problems at work, understand complex ideas, and make logical decisions. But emotions don't work like mathematics. There isn't always a clear answer. There isn't always a hidden reason. Sometimes people are simply tired. Sometimes they forget to reply. Sometimes life gets in the way. Yet an analytical mind struggles to accept uncertainty. Psychologists often describe uncertainty as something the brain naturally wants to reduce. For some people, especially those who rely heavily on logic, unanswered questions can feel surprisingly uncomfortable. Instead of accepting, "I don't know," the mind keeps searching until it invents an explanation, even when there isn't enough evidence, and that's exactly what happened to Ryan. One evening, his manager walked past him without saying good morning. Most people would have forgotten about it before lunchtime. Ryan couldn't. The entire day, he replayed that single moment in his head. Did I make a mistake yesterday? Was my presentation not good enough? Is he disappointed in me? Hours later, he finally discovered the truth. His manager had simply been distracted because his daughter had been admitted to hospital the night before. None of Ryan's theories had been true, yet the emotional stress he experienced felt completely real. This reveals something fascinating about the human brain. Your emotions don't always respond to reality, they respond to the story your mind creates about reality, and intelligent people are often capable of creating incredibly detailed stories. Another reason highly intelligent people struggle with emotions is that they spend far more time inside their own heads than in the present moment. Instead of experiencing life as it happens, they mentally replay the past or simulate the future. A single awkward conversation can become an hour-long internal debate. A small mistake becomes evidence that they're not good enough. A tiny uncertainty grows into a frightening possibility. Without realizing it, they become trapped inside an endless conversation with themselves. The more they think, the more emotional they become. The more emotional they become, the more they think. That it becomes a cycle that's surprisingly difficult to escape, and perhaps that's the greatest irony of all. The same intelligence that helps them understand the world can sometimes make it much harder to find peace within themselves. But this isn't the end of Ryan's story, because what happened next completely changed the way he understood his own mind. For weeks, Ryan couldn't stop thinking about that moment with his manager, not because it had changed his career, but because it made him realize something far more important. His emotions weren't being controlled by reality. They were being controlled by the stories his mind created. That single realization changed everything. That he started paying attention to the way his thoughts worked. Whenever something uncomfortable happened, he noticed that his brain immediately rushed to explain it. If someone didn't smile back, there had to be a reason. If a text message sounded cold, there had to be a hidden meaning. If someone acted differently, something must be wrong. His mind hated unanswered questions, and because it hated uncertainty, it often replaced missing information with imagined conclusions. This is known as the brain's tendency to fill in the blanks. The human mind naturally dislikes uncertainty. When it doesn't have enough information, it often creates a story that feels complete. The problem is that our brains are usually much better at imagining danger than imagining harmless explanations. That's why intelligent people often expect the worst, not because they're pessimistic, but because their minds are constantly searching for every possible outcome. Ironically, the more possibilities they can imagine, the harder it becomes to feel emotionally settled. Ryan began noticing another habit. Whenever he felt anxious, he didn't ask himself, "What am I feeling?" Instead, he asked, "Why am I feeling this?" Then another question appeared. What caused it? What does it mean? What if it gets worse? Every answer produced another question. It was like trying to escape a maze that kept building new walls. The more he searched for certainty, the further away certainty seemed. Psychologists sometimes call this rumination, the habit of repeatedly thinking about the same thoughts or problems without moving toward a solution. Instead of helping, it often keeps people emotionally stuck. That's exactly where Ryan had been living. He wasn't processing his emotions, he was analyzing them endlessly. One evening, after another exhausting day of overthinking, Ryan sat quietly on his apartment balcony. For the first time in years, he stopped trying to solve his emotions. He simply watched them. The anxiety was still there, the uncertainty was still there, but something surprising happened. Without feeding every thought with another question, the emotional intensity slowly began to fade. That moment taught him something no book had ever explained. Not every feeling is a problem that needs to be solved. Some feelings simply need to be experienced. Highly intelligent people often believe every uncomfortable emotion carries a hidden message waiting to be decoded, but emotions aren't mathematical equations. Sometimes sadness is just sadness, sometimes fear is simply fear, and sometimes the healthiest thing you can do is stop asking, why, and allow yourself to feel what you're already feeling. That simple shift became the turning point in Ryan's life, but there was still one final lesson he needed to learn. Because understanding your mind is powerful, learning when to stop listening to it is even more powerful. Over the next few months, Ryan didn't become less intelligent. He didn't stop analyzing problems. He didn't suddenly become an emotional person. What changed was something much more important. He finally understood that intelligence isn't measured by how many answers you have. It's also measured by how comfortable you are with not having every answer. Whenever his mind started creating stories, He learned to pause before believing them. Instead of asking, "What if they're upset with me?" he asked, "What evidence do I actually have?" Most of the time, the answer was simple. None, and for the first time in years, he allowed uncertainty to exist without trying to destroy it. Little by little, something remarkable happened. His relationships improved. He slept better. He smiled more, not because life had become easier, but because his mind had become quieter. Psychologists often say that emotional maturity isn't about controlling every feeling. It's about recognizing that feelings are temporary experiences, not permanent truths. Just because you feel rejected doesn't mean you are rejected, just because you feel like a failure doesn't mean you are one. And just because your mind tells you the worst-case scenario doesn't mean it's reality. Your brain is an incredible prediction machine, but predictions are not facts. This is where many highly intelligent people make one final mistake. They trust every thought simply because it came from their own mind, but the smartest people eventually realize something different. Not every thought deserves your attention, not every emotion needs an explanation, and not every silence hides a secret. Sometimes peace begins the moment you stop trying to solve yourself. So, if you've ever felt trapped inside your own thoughts, if you've ever replayed conversations hundreds of times, if you've ever searched for hidden meanings that probably never existed, there is nothing wrong with you. Your mind has simply become so skilled at analyzing the world that it forgot one important lesson. Life isn't meant to be understood perfectly. It's meant to be experienced. The strongest minds aren't the ones that think the most. They're the ones that know when to stop thinking. So the next time your mind creates another endless story, pause for a moment and ask yourself one simple question: am I responding to reality? Or am I responding to the story my mind has created? That single question might change the way you see yourself forever. If you enjoyed this video and want to explore more fascinating psychology that can help you understand yourself and others, make sure to subscribe and join us for the next journey into the human mind, because sometimes, the greatest mystery you'll ever solve is yourself. Have you ever looked at a really intelligent person and thought, wait, how did they do something that stupid? Maybe a top student forgot an important exam date. Maybe a successful businessperson invested in an obvious scam. Or maybe you've spent 20 minutes looking for your phone while it was in your hand the entire time. It sounds ridiculous, but here's the surprising truth: being smart doesn't protect you from making stupid decisions. In fact, sometimes it can make you even more likely to make them. And once you understand why, you'll start noticing it everywhere. Most people think intelligence is like a superpower. The smarter you are, the better your decisions should be. That sounds logical, but intelligence and decision-making are not the same thing. Think of it like this: a Formula One car is incredibly fast, but if the driver takes a wrong turn, that speed just helps them get lost faster. The same thing happens with smart people. They can think faster, analyze more information, and come up with clever explanations, but that doesn't mean those explanations are always correct. One reason smart people make bad decisions is overconfidence. When you've been right many times before, you start trusting yourself a little too much. You stop double-checking things. You stop asking for advice. And eventually, you convince yourself that you're too smart to make mistakes. Ironically, that's usually the moment a mistake is about to happen. Imagine a student who always gets top grades. One day they think, I don't need to study much for this test. I've got this. Then the results come out, and suddenly they're having a very uncomfortable. Another reason is that smart people are often excellent at justifying bad ideas. Let's say someone wants to buy something expensive that they don't really need. Most people might pause and think, maybe I shouldn't. A smart person, on the other hand, can create an entire presentation in their head explaining why it's actually a brilliant investment. They don't necessarily avoid bad decisions, they're just better at defending them. Things get even more interesting when emotions enter the picture. Smart people sometimes rely so heavily on logic that they ignore their emotions completely. But emotions aren't always the enemy of good decisions. They often act as important warning signals. If something feels wrong, there may be a reason. Ignoring those feelings can sometimes lead to serious mistakes. Imagine meeting someone who constantly lies to you. Your gut feeling says something is off, but you keep telling yourself, technically, there's no proof yet. A few months later, you're wondering why your trust, your peace of mind, and maybe even your money have disappeared. There's also a psychological trap called confirmation bias. This affects everyone, but smart people can be especially vulnerable to it. Once they believe something, they start searching for information that supports their belief while ignoring information that challenges it. It's like becoming your own lawyer instead of your own judge. You're no longer searching for the truth, you're searching for proof that you're right. And if we're being honest, our brains absolutely love being right. Think about online arguments. Have you ever been debating with someone and suddenly realized they might actually be correct? Instead of admitting it, your brain immediately starts looking for random examples, old arguments, and unrelated points to defend your position. Congratulations, you've just experienced the same psychological trap. It happens to almost everyone. The biggest lesson here is that smart people don't make better decisions simply because they're smart. They make better decisions when they stay humble. The smartest people are often the ones who regularly question themselves. They ask, what if I'm wrong? What am I missing, and, is there another explanation? These simple questions can prevent some very costly mistakes. Because true intelligence isn't about knowing everything. It's about understanding that you don't know everything. And that small difference changes everything. So the next time you see a smart person make a stupid decision, don't be surprised. They're human, just like everyone else. And maybe ask yourself this: have you ever made a decision that seemed smart at the time but later made you think, what was I actually thinking? Let me know in the comments, and if you enjoyed this video, subscribe for more psychology content. Because sometimes the biggest mystery. Have you ever met someone who confidently says, trust me, I know everything? No matter what topic comes up, science, business, relationships, history, or even medicine, they always seem to have an answer. And strangely, the less they actually know, the more confident they sound. Meanwhile, the truly intelligent person often says, I'm not completely sure. Why does this happen? Why do some people with the least knowledge believe they know the most, while the smartest people constantly question themselves? Today, we're going to uncover one of the most fascinating discoveries in psychology. By the end of this video, you might even realize that your own brain has been fooling you your entire life. But before we begin, I want you to try a tiny experiment. Close your eyes for 5 seconds and imagine the smartest person you know. Got someone in your mind? Good. Now answer this honestly. On a scale from 1 to 10, how intelligent do you think you are? Don't answer too quickly, because your answer itself might reveal something shocking about your brain. Now imagine 2 students walking out of the same exam. The first one smiles confidently and says, that exam was easy. I'll definitely score above 95. The second student looks worried and quietly says, I probably made several mistakes. I just hope I pass. A week later, the results are announced. The confident student scores only 45%, while the worried student gets 94%. How is that possible? Was the first student lying? Not at all. He genuinely believed he was right. His brain convinced him that he understood everything. This wasn't confidence. It was an illusion. Before I tell you what psychologists call this illusion, let me tell you about a man who accidentally became one of the most famous examples in psychology. In 1995, a man named MacArthur Wheeler walked into 2 banks in broad daylight. He wasn't wearing a mask. He didn't try to hide his face. Security cameras captured him clearly, and just a few hours later, the police arrested him. When officers showed him the security footage, he looked completely shocked. He kept repeating, but I wore the lemon juice. Yes, lemon juice. He believed that if he rubbed lemon juice on his face, security cameras wouldn't be able to see him because someone had told him that lemon juice works as invisible ink. Without understanding the science, he convinced himself it would also make him invisible. He wasn't joking. He truly believed it. When psychologists heard this bizarre story, they asked an important question. Could it be that people who know the least are also the least aware of how little they know? That single question led to one of the most important psychological discoveries ever made. Once you understand it, you'll start noticing it everywhere, in schools, at work, on social media, and even inside your own mind. Think about the internet for a moment. Someone watches one 5-minute video and suddenly becomes an expert in nutrition. Another person reads 2 motivational quotes and starts giving life advice to everyone. Someone watches a documentary and thinks they understand economics better than professionals. Sound familiar? Confidence is loud. Knowledge is usually quiet. Because the more you truly learn, the more you realize how much you don't know. That's why experts often say, "It depends," while beginners confidently say, "It's obvious." The people who should be the most confident often aren't, and the people who know the least are sometimes the loudest. Why? Because your brain has a hidden blind spot that can make you overestimate your intelligence without you even realizing it. Psychologists call this blind spot the Dunning-Kruger effect. In 1999, psychologists David Dunning and Justin Kruger conducted a series of experiments with college students. They tested people in areas like logic, grammar, and humor. After the test, they asked each participant how well they thought they had performed. The results were shocking. The students who scored the lowest consistently believed they had performed far above average. Meanwhile, the students who actually scored the highest often underestimated themselves. Why? Because the people who lacked knowledge also lacked the ability to recognize their own mistakes. The very skill you need to judge your own ability is the same skill you don't have yet. That's why ignorance becomes invisible, and that's exactly what makes this psychological effect so dangerous. Imagine you've never played chess before. You learn the basic rules in one afternoon. You beat your younger cousin twice and suddenly think, maybe I'm naturally gifted at chess. Then you play against a club player and lose in 5 moves. You didn't become worse overnight. Reality simply caught up with your confidence. Learning works exactly like that. When you know very little, everything seems simple. But as your knowledge grows, you begin to see complexity. Questions appear where certainty once existed. That's why true experts rarely say, "I know everything." Instead, they say, "There's still a lot I don't know." Think about driving. Almost everyone believes they're an above-average driver. But statistically, that's impossible. Not everyone can be above average. Yet our brains naturally protect our self-image. Admitting, "I'm not as good as I thought," feels uncomfortable. So the brain quietly replaces accuracy with confidence, and most people never notice. Social media makes this effect even stronger. Today, someone watches 3 short videos about psychology and suddenly starts diagnosing everyone around them. Someone reads one business thread and believes they understand the global economy. Someone follows a fitness influencer for a week and starts correcting doctors. The internet gives us information, but information isn't the same as understanding. Knowledge takes time, experience, mistakes, and reflection. Unfortunately, confidence arrives much faster. Imagine a mountain. If you're standing at the bottom, the peak looks close. You think, "I can reach that easily." But as you begin climbing, you realize the mountain is much taller than it looked. Every step reveals more distance. Learning works exactly the same way. Beginners see only the surface, while experts see endless depth. That's why beginners often feel certain, while experts remain humble. Albert Einstein once said, "The more I learn, the more I realize how much I don't know." That isn't insecurity. It's awareness. Real intelligence doesn't make you feel bigger. It makes you realize how vast the world truly is. But here's the scary part. The Dunning-Kruger effect doesn't only affect other people. It affects every one of us. Every expert was once overconfident. Every beginner has blind spots. The difference is that some people stay trapped there forever, while others recognize the illusion and keep growing. So how do you know if someone is trapped by this effect? The first sign is that they believe they already know enough. They say things like, "There's nothing new you can teach me," or "I've already figured it out." The moment someone stops learning, their growth stops too. Because the biggest enemy of intelligence isn't ignorance. It's the illusion that you already know everything. The second sign is that they never ask questions. Think about the smartest people you've ever met. Were they always talking, or were they listening? Real intelligence is curious. It asks, explores, and doubts. People trapped by overconfidence don't ask questions because they're convinced they already have all the answers. The third sign is that they blame everyone else. If they fail an exam, the teacher was unfair. If they lose money, the market was manipulated. If people disagree with them, everyone else must be stupid. Accepting mistakes requires self-awareness, and self-awareness is exactly what's missing when the Dunning-Kruger effect takes over. Interestingly, the opposite extreme isn't healthy either. Some incredibly intelligent people constantly underestimate themselves. They think, "Maybe I just got lucky," or "I'm probably not that good." This is known as imposter syndrome. Ironically, people who know the least often feel the most confident, while people who know the most sometimes doubt themselves. Confidence alone is not proof of intelligence. So how do you escape this psychological trap? First, be willing to say 3 powerful words, "I don't know." Those words don't make you look weak. They make you teachable. And teachable people never stop growing. Second, actively seek feedback. Ask people to criticize your ideas, not to hurt your ego, but to improve your thinking. Growth begins where comfort ends. Third, stay curious. Read books that challenge your beliefs. Talk to people who disagree with you. Instead of trying to win every argument, try to understand something new. Your goal isn't to protect your ego. Your goal is to discover the truth. Now let's go back to the question I asked you at the beginning. On a scale from 1 to 10, how intelligent are you? After everything you've learned today, would you give yourself the same answer? Or has your answer changed? If it has, that's actually a good sign. Because the smartest people aren't the ones who believe they know everything. They're the ones who never stop learning. Here's one final thought I'd like you to remember. The moment you think you've learned everything, you've stopped growing. But the moment you become curious again, your real intelligence begins. So the next time someone confidently says, "Trust me, I know everything," don't be impressed by their confidence. Pay attention to their curiosity. Because confidence can be faked. Curiosity cannot. If this video changed the way you think, let me ask you one final question. Have you ever met someone who was completely wrong but absolutely convinced they were right? Tell me your story in the comments. And if you enjoy psychology videos that reveal the hidden tricks of the human mind, make sure to subscribe, because in the next video we'll uncover another psychological phenomenon that controls millions of people without them even realizing it. Until then, stay curious, stay humble, and keep questioning your own mind. Have you ever met someone who believes they're the smartest person in every room, yet somehow keeps making the same mistakes over and over again? Or maybe you've wondered why some people refuse to change their minds, even when the truth is right in front of them. Here's something fascinating. Psychology suggests that intelligence isn't just about having a high IQ score or earning good grades. It's reflected in the way we think, make decisions, solve problems, and respond to new information. Surprisingly, some of the biggest signs of poor thinking are hidden in everyday habits that most people never question. Now, this video isn't here to judge or label anyone. These signs aren't proof that someone has a low IQ. They're simply habits that can weaken our ability to think clearly. The good news is that every one of these habits can be changed. So as you watch, don't think about someone else. Ask yourself one simple question: do I ever do this? Because by the end of this video, you might see yourself in a completely different way. Sign number 1, believing you're always right. Imagine trying to pour water into a glass that's already full. No matter how much water you add, nothing else can fit inside. The human mind works in a very similar way. When someone believes they're always right, they stop making room for new ideas. Instead of asking, "What if I'm wrong?" they spend all their energy trying to prove everyone else wrong. Psychologists call this confirmation bias, our natural tendency to search for information that support what we already believe while ignoring anything that challenges us. It's one of the biggest reasons people stop growing intellectually. Ironically, the smartest people are often the quickest to admit when they're wrong. They understand that every mistake is an opportunity to learn something new. Real intelligence isn't about always having the right answers. It's about being willing to ask better questions. Sign number 2, jumping to conclusions. Have you ever seen someone watch a 20-second video, read a single headline, and suddenly believe they know the entire story? It happens every single day. Our brains love shortcuts because deep thinking requires effort. It's much easier to make quick judgments than to gather facts and think carefully. The problem is that decisions made with incomplete information are often wrong. Intelligent people don't rush to conclusions. They ask questions, look for evidence, and stay open to changing their minds if new information appears. The first answer isn't always the correct one, and the fastest opinion isn't always the smartest one. Sign number 3, thinking you already know enough. One of the most dangerous sentences anyone can say is, "I already know that." At first, it sounds confident, but over time, it quietly stops personal growth. The world changes every day. New technologies emerge, scientific discoveries reshape what we know, and psychology continues to reveal new insights about human behavior. If someone stops learning, their knowledge slowly becomes outdated. Highly intelligent people never assume they've learned everything. They read books, ask questions, explore unfamiliar ideas, and remain curious throughout their lives. Curiosity keeps the mind alive. The moment you believe there's nothing left to learn is often the moment your growth begins to slow down. Sign number 4, rejecting every criticism. Nobody enjoys hearing that they've made a mistake. It's uncomfortable, and sometimes it hurts our pride. But the way we respond to criticism says a lot about how willing we are to grow. Imagine two people receiving exactly the same feedback. One becomes defensive, makes excuses, and blames someone else. The other listens carefully and asks, "How can I improve?" Both heard the same advice, but only one of them will become better because of it. Constructive criticism isn't an attack, it's information. Every successful athlete, entrepreneur, scientist, or leader has improved by accepting feedback instead of avoiding it. Growth begins the moment your desire to improve becomes stronger than your ego. Sign number 5, letting emotions control every decision. Have you ever sent an angry message that you wished you could take back? Or made an impulsive purchase that you regretted the very next day? That's what happens when emotions take control before logic has a chance to speak. Emotions are an important part of being human, but they were never meant to make every decision for us. People with strong thinking habits don't ignore their emotions. Instead, they pause, give themselves time to think, and respond with intention rather than impulse. That small pause can be the difference between making a wise decision and creating a problem that lasts for years. These were the first 5 signs. But believe it or not, the next 5 are even more surprising, and one of them is a habit that millions of people mistake for confidence when it's actually holding them back. Let's continue. Sign number 6, pretending to know everything. Have you ever asked someone a question they clearly didn't know the answer to, yet instead of simply saying, "I don't know," they confidently made something up? Many people believe admitting they don't know something makes them look weak, so they would rather guess than be honest. But psychology suggests the exact opposite. Truly intelligent people aren't afraid to say, "I don't know," because they understand that those 3 words are the beginning of learning. Think about it, if your mind is already convinced it knows everything, where is there room for new knowledge? The people who grow the fastest aren't the ones who always have the answers. They're the ones who never stop asking questions. Sign number 7, only listening to opinions that match your own. Have you ever noticed how comfortable it feels when someone agrees with everything you say? It feels reassuring, but it can also become a trap. Many people only watch videos, read articles, or follow people who already share their beliefs. The moment they hear a different opinion, they reject it without even thinking about it. Psychologists call this an echo chamber, where you're constantly surrounded by ideas that reinforce your existing beliefs. While it feels safe, it slowly limits your ability to think critically. Intelligent people don't fear different opinions. They explore them, question them, and use them to strengthen their own understanding, because sometimes the greatest lessons come from the ideas you disagree with the most. Sign number 8, talking more than listening. Some people think the smartest person in the room is the one who talks the most. But have you ever noticed that the wisest people often speak the least? They spend more time listening than trying to impress others. Every time you're talking, you're repeating something you already know. But every time you're listening, you have the chance to learn something new. Great leaders, successful entrepreneurs, and brilliant scientists all share one simple habit: they know how to listen. They understand that every conversation is an opportunity to gain knowledge, and sometimes the quietest person in the room walks away having learned the most. Sign number 9, blaming everyone else for every problem. Life isn't always fair. Sometimes things really do happen that are outside our control. But constantly blaming your parents, your boss, your friends, or bad luck for every problem keeps you stuck. If everything is someone else's fault, then you're also giving someone else the power to change your life. Intelligent people think differently. Instead of asking, "Whose fault is this?" they ask, "What can I do to improve this situation?" That small shift in thinking changes everything. Responsibility doesn't make life easier, but it gives you the power to grow. Blame creates excuses. Responsibility creates progress. Sign number 10, never questioning your own thinking. Here's a question most people never ask themselves: what if I'm wrong? We naturally trust our own thoughts, beliefs, and opinions. But our brains are far from perfect. They rely on shortcuts, assumptions, and biases that can easily mislead us. That's why intelligent people regularly challenge their own thinking. They ask themselves, do I actually have evidence for this, or could there be another explanation? Psychologists call this metacognition, the ability to think about your own thinking. It's one of the most powerful habits you can develop because it helps you catch mistakes before they become decisions. The wisest people aren't those who never make mistakes. They're the ones who never stop questioning themselves. We've now uncovered 10 signs that can quietly limit the way a person thinks. But the final 5 are even more surprising, and one of them is a habit that almost everyone has without realizing how much it's holding them back. Let's move on to the final part. Sign number 11, never learning from your mistakes. Everyone makes mistakes. That's part of being human. But have you ever noticed that some people keep making the same mistakes over and over again? They fail in relationships, struggle with money, or repeat poor decisions, yet nothing ever changes. Instead of asking, what can I learn from this, they blame bad luck, other people, or the situation. Intelligent people understand that failure isn't the opposite of success, it's one of the fastest ways to reach it. Every mistake carries a lesson, but only if you're willing to look for it. The biggest mistake isn't failing. It's failing without learning anything. Sign number 12, believing everything you see online. We live in a world where information spreads faster than ever before. A viral video, a social media post, or a confident speaker can make almost anything sound believable. But just because thousands of people share something doesn't make it true. Intelligent people don't believe information simply because it's popular. They ask questions. They look for reliable sources. They compare different perspectives before accepting something as fact. In today's world, the ability to think critically is more valuable than the ability to memorize information. Because information is everywhere, but wisdom is knowing what deserves your trust. Sign number 13, looking down on other people. Some people believe they're smarter than everyone around them. They interrupt others, dismiss different opinions, and assume they have nothing left to learn. But here's the irony. The more someone believes they're above everyone else, the less they actually grow. Every person you meet has experiences you've never had and knowledge you don't possess. Truly intelligent people understand this. They remain humble because they know learning can come from anyone, a child, a stranger, or even someone they completely disagree with. Arrogance closes the mind. Humility keeps it open. Sign number 14, avoiding difficult thinking. Our brains naturally choose what's easy. That's why it's so tempting to scroll endlessly through short videos instead of reading a book or solving a challenging problem. Deep thinking requires effort, patience, and concentration. Unfortunately, many people avoid it because it's uncomfortable. But every meaningful decision in life, choosing a career, building relationships, managing money, or solving complex problems, requires the ability to think deeply. Intelligent people don't run away from difficult questions. They sit with them. They reflect. They analyze. Because the quality of your life is often determined by the quality of your thinking. Sign number 15, believing intelligence is fixed. Perhaps the biggest myth of all is believing that intelligence can never change. Many people grow up thinking that you're either born smart or you're not. But modern psychology tells a very different story. The human brain is constantly changing. Every time you learn a new skill, challenge an old belief, or practice something difficult, your brain builds new connections. This incredible ability is known as neuroplasticity. In other words, intelligence isn't just something you're born with, it's something you develop. The people who grow the most aren't always the ones who started with the highest IQ. They're the ones who never stopped learning. So, if you recognized yourself in some of these signs, don't feel discouraged. Every single one of us has thinking habits that hold us back. The difference is that once you become aware of them, you have the power to change them. Intelligence isn't about being perfect. It's about becoming a little wiser every single day. Now, here's a question I'd love for you to answer. Which of these 15 signs surprised you the most, and which one do you think is the most common in today's world? Leave your answer in the comments below. I read as many of them as I can, and I'd love to hear your thoughts. If you enjoyed this video and want to understand the hidden psychology behind human behavior, make sure to subscribe and turn on notifications, because every week we explore powerful psychological insights that can help you think smarter, make better decisions, and understand yourself on a much deeper level. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next video. Have you ever met someone who seemed different? Not louder. Not more confident. Not desperate to prove how smart they were. Yet somehow, everyone respected them. Rare intelligence doesn't always look like a high IQ. In fact, it often reveals itself through small, almost invisible habits that most people completely overlook. The fascinating part is that many people with rare intelligence never even realize they think differently. To them, these habits feel completely normal. In today's video, you'll discover 7 habits that psychology often associates with deeper thinking, stronger self-awareness, and uncommon mental patterns. As you watch, don't ask yourself, am I intelligent? Instead, ask yourself, how many of these habits describe the way I naturally think? Let's begin. The first habit is that they think before they react. Most people react emotionally. They allow anger, frustration, or fear to control their next move. But people with rare intelligence pause. Even when they are criticized or misunderstood, their first instinct isn't to fight back. Their first instinct is to observe. They understand that emotions are temporary, but decisions often have long-lasting consequences. Instead of asking, how do I win this argument, they quietly ask themselves, what's actually happening here? That simple pause allows them to see situations more clearly while everyone else is trapped inside their emotions. It isn't weakness. It's emotional intelligence working behind the scenes. The second habit is that they observe more than they speak. Have you ever noticed that the smartest person in the room is often the quietest? That's because observation is one of the greatest forms of intelligence. While everyone else is trying to impress others with their opinions, highly intelligent people are collecting information. They pay attention to facial expressions, body language, tone of voice, and subtle emotional signals that most people completely miss. They know that every conversation reveals something valuable if you simply pay attention. You can't learn much while you're talking, but you can learn everything while you're listening. Silence isn't emptiness. Sometimes, silence is strategy. The third habit is that they enjoy spending time alone. Most people are uncomfortable with silence. They constantly need noise, social media, or distractions to avoid being alone with their thoughts. But people with rare intelligence often value solitude. Being alone doesn't mean they hate people. It means they enjoy thinking without interruption. In silence, the brain starts connecting ideas, solving problems, and recognizing patterns that would otherwise go unnoticed. This is why many great scientists, writers, philosophers, and inventors spent long periods working alone. Solitude gives the mind room to grow. The fourth habit is that they constantly question their own beliefs. One of the biggest signs of intelligence isn't always having the right answers. It's having the courage to admit, I might be wrong. Average thinking protects beliefs. Intelligent thinking tests them. Rather than searching for evidence that proves them right, they actively look for evidence that could prove them wrong. They understand that truth matters more than ego. This mindset allows them to grow because learning only happens when we are willing to change our minds. Intelligence is not about defending your opinions, it's about improving them. The fifth habit is that they notice patterns other people ignore. Most people see isolated events. Intelligent people see connections. They notice repeated behaviors, repeated mistakes, repeated emotional reactions, and repeated outcomes. Instead of asking, what happened, they ask, has this happened before? This ability to recognize patterns allows them to predict situations long before everyone else understands what's happening. They often sense problems before they appear because they notice small details that most people dismiss. Pattern recognition is one of the hidden powers of an intelligent mind. The sixth habit is that they prefer understanding over judging. It's easy to label someone as lazy, selfish, rude, or weak. But intelligent people usually become curious before they become judgmental. Instead of asking, what's wrong with this person, they ask, what happened to this person? This doesn't mean they excuse bad behavior. It simply means they understand that every action has a cause. They look deeper before making conclusions. This habit helps them build stronger relationships because understanding people is often far more valuable than judging them. The seventh and perhaps the most powerful habit is that they never stop learning. No matter how much they know, they believe there is always something new to discover. Curiosity becomes a lifelong habit. They read books, ask questions, explore different perspectives, and stay open to new ideas. They understand that intelligence isn't measured by how much information you already have. It's measured by how willing you are to keep learning. Ego says, I already know. Intelligence says, what am I still missing? That simple difference separates people who stop growing from those who continue evolving throughout their lives. Now here's something that most people never realize. Rare intelligence isn't about having the highest IQ. It isn't about getting perfect grades or using complicated words. True intelligence is reflected in the way you think, the way you respond, the way you learn, and the way you treat other people. If you recognize several of these habits in yourself, don't see them as proof that you're better than others. Instead, see them as a responsibility. Intelligence without humility becomes arrogance. But intelligence combined with self-awareness has the power to transform your life. Now tell me in the comments, which of these 7 habits describes you the most? And if you enjoyed this video, don't forget to subscribe for more psychology-based insights into human behavior, relationships, and the hidden patterns that shape our lives. Until next time, keep observing, keep questioning, and never stop learning. Have you ever looked at someone and thought, why would they do that? Maybe it was a friend who suddenly stopped talking to you. A stranger who was unexpectedly kind. Someone who lied even when they didn't have to. Or someone who kept making the same mistake over and over again. We spend so much of our lives trying to understand people, but the truth is, human behavior is far more complicated than it looks. And the biggest mistake we make is believing that people always do things for the reasons they tell us. Here's something fascinating. Two people can do the exact same thing for completely different reasons. Imagine someone donating money to charity. From the outside, it looks like kindness. But one person might be doing it because they genuinely want to help. Another might be doing it to impress others. A third person might be trying to ease the guilt they've been carrying for years. The action is the same, but the psychology behind it is completely different. That's why judging people by what they do is often misleading. If you really want to understand someone, don't just watch their actions. Try to understand what those actions are trying to satisfy. The human brain is always chasing something. Sometimes it's safety. Sometimes it's love. Sometimes it's respect. Sometimes it's control. Every decision we make, whether it's choosing a career, falling in love, buying a new phone, or even posting a photo online, is usually driven by an emotional need that we're not even fully aware of. We like to think we're completely logical, but psychologists have discovered that emotions often make the decision first, and logic simply arrives later to justify it. Think about the last thing you bought that you didn't actually need. Maybe it was a pair of shoes, a gadget, or something you saw online late at night. At that moment, it probably felt like a smart decision. But was it really about the product? Or was it about how you wanted to feel? Maybe you wanted excitement. Maybe you wanted comfort after a stressful day. Maybe you wanted to reward yourself for working hard. The product wasn't the real goal. The feeling was. This is exactly how people work in almost every part of life. We don't just chase things. We chase emotions. Someone works 16 hours a day because they want success. But underneath that success might be a child who grew up feeling ignored and now wants recognition. Another person avoids relationships, not because they don't believe in love, but because they've been hurt before and their brain is trying to protect them from experiencing that pain again. From the outside, their choices seem confusing. But once you understand the emotion driving them, everything suddenly starts making sense. One of the most powerful ideas in psychology is that every behavior has a purpose, even if that purpose isn't healthy. The person who constantly seeks attention isn't always selfish. Sometimes they're desperately looking for validation they never received growing up. The person who gets angry over small things isn't always aggressive. Sometimes anger is simply the only emotion they've ever learned to express. The person who keeps everyone at a distance isn't always cold. Sometimes they're terrified of getting close because they know what heartbreak feels like. That's why it's dangerous to judge people too quickly. We see the final behavior, but we rarely see the invisible story behind it. Imagine watching the last 5 minutes of a movie and believing you understand the entire plot. It wouldn't make sense. Yet that's exactly what we do with people every day. We see one mistake, one reaction, one decision, and we convince ourselves we know who they are. In reality, we're only seeing the ending of a story whose beginning we never witnessed. Our past quietly shapes our present in ways we don't even notice. A child who was constantly criticized may grow into an adult who never feels good enough, no matter how successful they become. Someone who was betrayed by people they trusted might spend years struggling to believe anyone again. And someone who grew up feeling safe and loved often finds it much easier to trust others. The strange part is that most people don't even realize their past is influencing them. They simply believe, this is just who I am. Another reason people behave the way they do is because the brain loves patterns. Once it learns that a certain behavior protects us or rewards us, it repeats that behavior automatically. That's why habits are so difficult to break. The brain isn't asking, is this good for me? It's asking, has this worked before? Even unhealthy behaviors can feel comfortable simply because they're familiar. It's one of the reasons people stay in toxic relationships, keep procrastinating, or repeat the same mistakes. Familiarity often feels safer than change, even when it's making us unhappy. The next time you see someone making a choice that doesn't make sense, pause for a second before judging them. Ask yourself a different question. Not what's wrong with this person, but what need is this behavior trying to satisfy? Because the answer to that question will tell you far more about human psychology than the behavior itself. And once you begin looking at people this way, you'll realize that almost everything we do is really an attempt to feel something we've been searching for all along. The most surprising part is that people rarely see themselves as the villain in their own story. Almost everyone believes they have a good reason for what they do. Even when someone lies, cheats, or hurts another person, their mind usually creates a story that makes their behavior feel reasonable. That's because the human brain hates seeing itself as the bad guy. Instead, it changes the story. I had no choice. They deserved it that I was protecting myself. Whether those reasons are true or not, the brain uses them to protect our self-image. And that's why understanding people is often less about listening to their words and more about understanding the story they're telling themselves. This is also why two people can experience the exact same event and walk away with completely different beliefs. Imagine two children who both fail an exam. One thinks, I need to work harder. The other thinks, I'm just not smart enough. The event is identical, but the meaning they give to it changes everything. Psychology has shown that people don't react to reality itself, they react to the meaning they attach to reality. And once a belief is formed, the brain starts looking for evidence to prove it right. Have you ever noticed that if someone believes people can't be trusted, they somehow keep meeting dishonest people? Or if someone believes they're unlucky, they always seem to remember every bad thing that happens. That's because the brain constantly filters information. It pays attention to what supports your beliefs and quietly ignores what doesn't. It's almost like wearing invisible glasses. The world hasn't changed, but the way you see it has. Another fascinating reason people do what they do is the need to belong. Human beings have survived in groups for thousands of years, so deep inside, the brain still fears rejection. That's why people laugh at jokes they don't find funny, agree with opinions they don't actually believe, or follow trends they secretly don't like. Sometimes we're not trying to be ourselves, we're trying to avoid being left out. The desire to fit in is far more powerful than most people realize. But here's where things become even more interesting. The people who seem the most confident aren't always the most secure. Sometimes confidence is genuine, but sometimes it's a mask. A person who constantly talks about their success may actually be afraid of feeling insignificant. Someone who always needs to be the center of attention may secretly fear being forgotten. And the person who criticizes everyone else might simply be fighting battles with themselves that nobody else can see. Human behavior is full of hidden emotions wearing different disguises. That's why empathy is such a powerful skill. Empathy doesn't mean agreeing with everything people do. It means trying to understand the invisible reasons behind their actions. The more you understand human psychology, the less you react emotionally to every situation. Instead of asking, why would they do something so stupid, you begin asking, what pain, fear, or desire could have led them here? That single shift in perspective can completely change the way you see the people around you. And here's something that can change your own life. The same psychology you use to understand others can help you understand yourself. The next time you procrastinate, lose your temper, avoid a difficult conversation, or make a decision you later regret, don't just blame yourself. Ask yourself what your brain was trying to protect or achieve in that moment. You might discover that your behavior wasn't random at all. It was your mind trying to meet a need in the only way it knew how. The truth is, people aren't as unpredictable as they seem. Beneath every action is an emotion. Beneath every emotion is a need. And beneath every need is a story. Once you begin seeing those stories instead of just the behavior, the world starts making a lot more sense. You stop taking everything personally. You stop judging so quickly. And you begin understanding that every person you meet is carrying experiences you'll probably never fully see. So the next time someone surprises you with their behavior, remember this: people don't always do what makes the most sense. They do what makes the most sense to them, based on their experiences, beliefs, fears, and emotions. And that's the hidden psychology behind almost everything humans do. If this video made you look at people a little differently, let me ask you one question. Have you ever realized that one of your own habits was actually being controlled by a hidden emotion? Share your answer in the comments. I read as many as I can. And if you enjoy exploring the psychology behind everyday human behavior, make sure to subscribe, because sometimes understanding why people do what they do is the first step toward understanding yourself. Have you ever wondered why you clicked on this video? Think about it for a moment. Out of millions of videos available on YouTube, you chose the one that clearly told you, "Don't watch this video." I literally asked you not to click, yet here you are. Does that mean you're rebellious? Does it mean you don't like following instructions? Actually, no. It means your brain reacted exactly the way millions of other human brains react every single day. In fact, the moment you clicked on this video, you unknowingly became part of a real psychological experiment. And the most interesting part is that almost everyone watching this video has done the exact same thing. Why? Because the human mind has a fascinating tendency that most people never notice. The moment someone tries to limit our freedom, something inside us immediately pushes back. Instead of avoiding the forbidden thing, we suddenly become more interested in it. Instead of losing curiosity, our curiosity grows even stronger. Psychologists call this phenomenon psychological reactance theory, a concept introduced by psychologist Jack Brem in 1966. According to this theory, whenever people feel that their freedom to choose is being threatened or taken away, they experience an internal psychological force that motivates them to restore that freedom. In simple words, when someone tells you that you can't do something, your brain suddenly wants to prove that you actually can. Think about your childhood for a moment. Imagine a room full of toys where your parents tell you, you can play with everything except that one toy. What happens next? Out of all the toys in the room, your attention immediately shifts to the one you're not supposed to touch. Just a few seconds earlier, that toy wasn't even special. But the moment it became forbidden, it became the most attractive object in the room. Did the toy change? No. The only thing that changed was your perception. Your brain interpreted the restriction as a threat to your freedom, and suddenly the forbidden toy became irresistible. This doesn't just happen with children. Adults experience the exact same psychological reaction every single day without realizing it. Imagine someone telling you, "Don't think about a pink elephant." What happened? The very first image that appeared in your mind was probably a pink elephant. The harder you tried not to think about it, the more clearly you imagined it. That's because the human brain struggles to suppress thoughts when it receives direct commands not to think about them. Ironically, trying to avoid a thought often makes that thought even stronger. Now think about relationships. Have you ever noticed how some people become even more interested in someone after being told they shouldn't date that person? Parents often try to stop their teenagers from seeing someone, believing that strict rules will solve the problem. But many times, the opposite happens. The relationship becomes even more exciting simply because it feels forbidden. Psychologists even have a name for this pattern, the Romeo and Juliet effect. Restrictions don't always reduce desire, in many cases, they increase it. The same psychology is used in marketing every single day. Imagine you're shopping online. You see two products. One is always available. The other says, only 2 left in stock. Suddenly, which one feels more valuable? The limited one. Not because it became better, but because your freedom to buy it feels like it's about to disappear. Scarcity creates urgency, and urgency makes people act. Your brain doesn't simply see a product, it sees the possibility of losing the chance to choose that product. Have you ever wondered why signs saying, "Do not enter," attract so much attention? Why do people peek behind restricted doors or become curious about private information? The answer isn't that humans love breaking rules for no reason. The answer is that forbidden things naturally appear more valuable because they challenge our sense of freedom. The restriction itself creates curiosity. Even social media platforms take advantage of this psychological principle. Titles like, "Don't make this mistake, only smart people will understand this," or "You shouldn't watch this video," instantly trigger your curiosity. The words themselves create a tiny feeling that someone is trying to control your choices. Your brain responds by wanting to prove that nobody else gets to decide what you can watch or learn. Without realizing it, you click, "Now here's something even more fascinating." This psychological reaction doesn't only influence the videos you watch or the products you buy, it also affects your opinions, your habits, and even your life decisions. Imagine someone giving you advice in a controlling tone. They say, "You have to do this," or "You must stop doing that." Even if the advice is completely correct, many people immediately feel resistance. They don't reject the advice because it's wrong. They reject it because they feel their freedom is being threatened. That's why forcing people to change often produces the opposite result. This is also the secret behind reverse psychology. Instead of directly telling someone what to do, people sometimes suggest the opposite. For example, imagine telling a child, "You probably can't clean your room today." Suddenly the child wants to prove you wrong. Or telling a friend, "I don't think you'll be able to finish this challenge." Instead of giving up, they become more motivated. Why? Because they feel that their ability or freedom has been questioned, and their brain wants to restore it. However, this psychological tendency can also be dangerous. Companies, advertisers, influencers, and even politicians understand that people don't like feeling controlled. That's why messages are often designed to create urgency, exclusivity, or fear of missing out. Sometimes you think you're making a completely independent decision, while in reality your brain is simply reacting to carefully designed psychological triggers. So, does this mean you're easy to manipulate? Not at all. In fact, understanding this theory gives you more control over your own decisions. The next time someone tells you, "You can't," "Don't," or "You're not allowed," don't immediately react emotionally. Pause for a moment and ask yourself a simple question: do I genuinely want to do this, or do I only want to do it because someone told me not to? That single question can completely change the way you make decisions. Real freedom isn't doing the opposite of what other people tell you. Real freedom is making choices based on your own values instead of emotional reactions. Sometimes the smartest decision is to ignore the urge to rebel. Other times, it means questioning whether your desire is truly yours or simply a reaction to someone else's attempt to control you. Now let's go back to the beginning of this video. I told you not to watch it. You clicked anyway. That wasn't because you made a bad decision. It wasn't because you were careless. It happened because your brain responded exactly the way human brains have evolved to respond whenever freedom feels threatened. Today, you didn't just learn a psychological theory, you experienced it yourself. From this moment on, you'll start noticing psychological reactants everywhere. In advertisements, in relationships, in parenting, in politics, in social media, and even in your own everyday choices. And once you recognize it, you'll realize that understanding psychology isn't just about understanding other people. It's about finally understanding yourself. Before you leave, I want to ask you one simple question: did you click on this video because you were genuinely curious, or because I told you not to watch it? Let me know in the comments. And here's another interesting question: has there ever been a time when someone told you not to do something, but that only made you want to do it even more? If you've experienced that, share your story in the comments. I'd love to read it. If this video helped you understand something new about the way your own mind works, don't forget to leave a like. And if you're interested in learning more about psychology, human behavior, and the hidden patterns that influence our everyday decisions, make sure to subscribe to the channel so you don't miss the next video. Remember, the day you begin to understand the hidden psychology behind your own decisions is the day you stop being controlled by your impulses and start making conscious choices. Thank you for watching, and I'll see you in the next video. Have you ever walked into a room and instantly felt that something was off, even though nobody said anything? Maybe you noticed the way someone suddenly stopped smiling. The tiny pause before they answered a simple question. The way their voice changed for just a second. Most people would never notice these things. But you do. And the strangest part is, people often tell you that you're overthinking. They say, "Why do you notice everything? Why are you reading so much into it? It's not that serious." But what if the problem isn't that you notice too much? What if your brain is simply picking up signals that most people completely miss? Because people who notice everything don't just see what happens. They notice what changes. And the psychology behind this is much stranger than most people realize. Think about the last time you were talking to someone and they said, "I'm fine." Their words were normal. Their face looked normal. But something about their energy felt different. Maybe their voice was slightly flatter. Maybe they avoided eye contact for a moment longer than usual. Maybe they answered too quickly. And somehow, you knew. You couldn't explain exactly how you knew. You just knew something had changed. This is one of the first strange psychological traits of people who notice everything. They don't focus only on what is happening. Their brain constantly compares the present moment with what it already knows. You know how your best friend normally talks. You know how someone usually laughs. You know how quickly they normally reply. And the moment that pattern changes, your brain catches it. Most people see one moment. But your mind quietly compares that moment with hundreds of previous moments stored in your memory. It's almost like your brain is constantly asking one silent question. Is this normal for them? And when the answer is no, you notice it. This is why people who notice everything can sometimes sense a problem before anyone else does. Not because they are psychic. Not because they can read minds. But because they are constantly observing patterns. And here's where it gets really interesting. People who notice everything often look extremely quiet from the outside. They may sit in a room and barely say anything. But mentally, they are noticing everything. Who suddenly became uncomfortable? Who stopped talking when a certain person entered the room? Who laughed a little too loudly? Who changed the subject? Who kept looking at their phone during a serious conversation? And the strange thing is, they usually don't react immediately. They just store the information. This is why people often misunderstand them. They think quiet people are not paying attention. But sometimes the quietest person in the room is actually the person who has noticed the most. They just haven't decided what to do with that information yet. Because they are not only listening to what you say. They are watching the gap between what you say, and how you behave. And that gap can reveal a lot. Have you ever met someone who says, "I don't know why, but I don't trust that person"? They can't give you a list of logical reasons. They can't explain it properly. But something feels wrong. This is where many people who notice everything become confused about themselves. Because they often feel things before they can explain them. Their brain notices tiny details unconsciously. A change in facial expression. A different tone of voice. A strange pause. A mismatch between someone's words and their body language. Your conscious mind may not know what it noticed. But your subconscious mind already collected the information. And then it sends you a feeling. Something is off. This is why people who notice everything often say, "I knew something was wrong. I just couldn't explain it." Sometimes your brain reaches a conclusion before your conscious mind understands the evidence. But there is a darker side to noticing everything. Once your brain learns to observe small changes, it becomes very difficult to switch that ability off. You start noticing things you never wanted to notice. You notice when someone's enthusiasm for you slowly disappears. You notice when a conversation suddenly feels forced. You notice when someone who used to reply instantly starts taking hours. You notice when a person says they care, but their actions start changing. And here's the painful part. Once you notice the change, you cannot unnotice it. You can pretend everything is normal. You can tell yourself, "Maybe I'm imagining it." But somewhere in your mind, you already saw the difference. And sometimes this is why people who notice everything become emotionally tired. Not because they are weak, but because their brain keeps collecting information, even when they desperately want peace. And here's something most people don't understand about them. They often notice emotional changes in other people before they notice their own. They can immediately tell when a friend is sad. They can sense when someone feels uncomfortable. They can tell when a person is hiding something. But when it comes to themselves, they may spend weeks saying, "I'm fine," even when they clearly are not. Why? Because they are so focused on observing the outside world, that they sometimes forget to observe what is happening inside them. They become experts at reading everyone else, but complete strangers to their own emotions. And this is where people who notice everything often make a strange mistake. They assume that because they can understand other people's behavior, they can control how it affects them. But understanding something doesn't always make it hurt less. Now let's talk about something even more interesting. Why do some people notice everything? Some people are simply naturally observant. Their brain is more sensitive to details and changes. But for others, this ability may have developed because they learned very early that small changes mattered. Maybe they grew up around unpredictable people. Maybe someone's mood could change suddenly. Maybe they had to carefully observe the room before saying something. And slowly, their brain learned one important rule. Pay attention. Watch the face. Listen to the voice. Notice the mood. Look for the change. And years later, the person may still be doing it, even when they are no longer in danger. This is why some people can walk into a room and instantly feel the atmosphere. Their brain has been trained to scan for changes. And sometimes, what looks like overthinking is actually a brain that became extremely good at observation. But here's the problem. The more you notice, the more you can start seeing patterns everywhere. And not every pattern is real. This is the dangerous part. Sometimes your brain notices a genuine change. But sometimes, it connects two completely unrelated things. Someone takes longer to reply. They seem tired. They don't talk much. And suddenly your brain starts creating a story. Are they angry with me? Did I do something? Are they avoiding me? This is where observation can slowly turn into overthinking. And the difference between the two is extremely important. Observation says, something changed. Overthinking says, I know exactly why it changed. And that is where your brain can start lying to you. Because noticing everything does not mean understanding everything. Sometimes you see the signal, but completely misunderstand the meaning behind it. And now comes the part that most people never think about. People who notice everything often believe they are simply looking at other people. But psychologically, they are also revealing something about themselves. Because what you notice repeatedly says something about what your brain considers important. If you constantly notice changes in people's moods, maybe emotional shifts feel extremely important to you. If you notice every tiny sign of rejection, maybe your brain is constantly checking whether you are still accepted. If you notice every small lie, maybe trust is something you think about more than most people. In other words, your attention is not random. Your brain pays attention to what it believes could matter. And this leads to a very uncomfortable question. Maybe people who notice everything are not simply too observant. Maybe their brain is constantly asking, what should I be prepared for? And here's the final truth. The most observant people are often not the people who say the most. They are the people who remember the smallest details. The exact moment your voice changed. The sentence you almost said, but stopped yourself from saying. The way you looked away when they asked a question. And the weirdest part is, they may never tell you that they noticed. They just quietly update their opinion of you. No argument. No dramatic confrontation. No explanation. You simply start seeing less of them. And this is the part most people completely misunderstand. They think the observant person suddenly became cold. But maybe, they didn't suddenly change. Maybe they finally stopped ignoring what they had been noticing all along. So if you are someone who notices everything, the tiny pauses, the changes in energy, the things people say without actually saying them, maybe you are not crazy. Maybe your brain is simply paying attention in a world where most people only look. But remember this, not every signal is a warning. Sometimes a change is just a change. And sometimes, your brain is not discovering a hidden truth. It's just trying to protect you from a story that hasn't even happened yet. So the next time you notice something that everyone else seems to miss, ask yourself one simple question: did I actually observe something, or did my mind just create a meaning? Because people who notice everything often forget one thing. The mind that sees everything can also see things that aren't really there.
Have you ever noticed that people who get angry easily are actually the easiest to understand? When they're upset, it shows. When they're frustrated, everyone knows it. But then there are those people who stay calm no matter what happens. And honestly, those are often the people who seem the most intimidating. Imagine two people facing the exact same problem. One immediately starts arguing, getting angry, and losing control. The other simply stays quiet, listens, and remains calm. Most people will focus on the loud person. But in reality, the calm person is often the one thinking more clearly and understanding the situation better. When emotions take over, we tend to make poor decisions. Calm people, on the other hand, don't just react, they think. They observe everything around them, process the situation, and then decide what to do next. That's why underestimating a calm person can sometimes be a big mistake. If there's another reason calm people can feel intimidating, they're hard to read. When someone shows every emotion on their face, it's easy to know what's going on in their mind. But when a person stays calm all the time, now, this doesn't mean that every calm person is dangerous. Many calm people are kind, trustworthy, and genuinely good-hearted. The problem is that people often mistake calmness for weakness. In reality, staying in control when everyone else is losing control is a sign of real strength. Think about the people who handle pressure the best. They're usually not the loudest people in the room. They're the ones who stay calm, think clearly, and make smart decisions when everyone else is panicking. So the next time you meet someone who remains calm in difficult situations, don't assume they're weak. Their greatest strength might be something most people struggle with: complete control over their emotions. And maybe that's why the strongest person in the room isn't always the one making the most noise. Sometimes, it's the quiet person who never needs to raise their voice. What do you think? Are calm people stronger than emotional people? Let me know in the comments.
Have you ever noticed something strange? Some of the most intelligent people you know somehow keep ending up surrounded by toxic people. They attract the manipulator, the emotionally unavailable person, the person who constantly creates drama. And the weirdest part is, intelligent people usually notice the toxicity. They can see the red flags. They can explain exactly why the person is toxic. They can even warn other people about the same behavior. But when it comes to themselves, they still stay. And that raises a very uncomfortable question. Why? Why do intelligent people keep attracting toxic people? The answer is actually much more complicated than simply saying, they have bad taste in people. Because in many cases, the problem isn't that intelligent people can't recognize toxic behavior. The problem is, they understand it too well. And this is where things start getting psychologically interesting. Intelligent people are often very good at seeing patterns. They notice small changes in behavior. They notice when someone's tone suddenly changes. They notice when a person is lying. They notice when someone is manipulating a situation. But here's the trap. When an intelligent person notices toxic behavior, their brain often doesn't immediately say, leave. Instead, it says, why are they behaving like this? Maybe they're insecure. Maybe they had a difficult childhood. Maybe they don't know how to communicate. Maybe something happened to them. And suddenly, instead of judging the behavior, the intelligent person starts analyzing the person behind the behavior. This is one of the biggest reasons smart people stay around toxic people. They don't just see the damage. They see the explanation behind the damage. And sometimes, understanding someone becomes the reason you tolerate them. Think about it. If a toxic person hurts you, an average reaction might be, "That's a terrible person. I'm done." But an intelligent person may think, "Okay, but what caused this behavior?" And that question can keep them trapped for a very long time. Because the moment you understand someone's pain, you may start confusing explanation with excuse. And these are not the same thing. Understanding why someone hurts people does not mean you have to keep standing close enough to be hurt. But intelligent people often forget this. And there's another reason this happens. Smart people are often attracted to complexity. Not because intelligent people consciously want toxic relationships, but because their brains are used to solving problems. They enjoy figuring things out. They enjoy discovering hidden patterns. They enjoy understanding what other people don't understand. And a toxic person? A toxic person can feel like a psychological puzzle. One day they're incredibly loving, the next day they're distant. Then they suddenly become emotional. Then they act like nothing happened. And your brain starts trying to solve the pattern. What changed? What did I do? Why were they so close yesterday? This emotional unpredictability creates something very dangerous. Your brain becomes obsessed with finding the next pattern. And psychologically, unpredictable rewards can become extremely addictive. When someone is consistently kind, you know what to expect. But when someone is kind only sometimes, your brain starts waiting for the next good moment. And this is one reason toxic relationships can feel so difficult to leave. You're not just attached to the person. Sometimes, you're attached to the possibility of the next good version of them. And intelligent people are especially vulnerable to this because they can imagine that version very clearly. They don't just see who the person is. They see who the person could become. And this brings us to another uncomfortable truth. Intelligent people often overestimate their ability to change people. Not in an arrogant way. They may never actually say, "I can fix this person." But subconsciously, they may think, "If I explain it properly, they'll understand. If I communicate better, they'll change. If I show them how their behavior affects me, they'll finally see it." And this is where intelligence becomes a trap. Because smart people are used to solving problems with logic. If something doesn't work, they analyze it. They find the mistake. They try a different strategy. But people are not mathematical equations. You cannot always explain someone into becoming emotionally healthy. Sometimes the person understands exactly what they're doing. They just don't want to stop. And that is a truth many intelligent people find extremely difficult to accept. Because accepting it means admitting, "This is not a problem I can solve." And smart people don't always like unsolvable problems. Now here's something even more interesting. Some intelligent people attract toxic people because they are emotionally patient. They listen. They give people chances. They try to understand different perspectives. They don't immediately react. And these are beautiful qualities. But a toxic person can mistake patience for weakness. They notice that you forgive. They notice that you explain instead of leaving. They notice that you keep trying to understand them. And slowly, they start testing how much they can get away with. This is why some toxic people are actually attracted to emotionally intelligent people. Because emotionally intelligent people often give more chances. They communicate more. They try to repair things. And a manipulative person can use that patience against them. Now, I want you to think about something. Have you ever been in a situation where you were constantly explaining someone else's behavior to your friends? You say things like, She's actually a good person. He's just going through a lot. They don't really mean it. They have trust issues. And your friends keep saying. But they keep hurting you. And you keep defending the person. If you've ever done this, you may not be in love with the person you are defending. You may be in love with the version of them you believe exists underneath the toxicity. And that is a very dangerous place to live. Because you can spend years trying to reach a version of someone who only exists in your imagination. So why do intelligent people attract toxic people? The answer is not because they are stupid. It's not because they don't see the red flags. And it's definitely not because they secretly want to suffer. Sometimes, they attract toxic people because they are curious. Because they understand too much. Because they see potential. Because they believe communication can solve everything. And because they keep giving people the benefit of the doubt, long after the evidence has changed. But here's the most important lesson. Your ability to understand someone does not create an obligation to stay with them. You can understand their childhood. You can understand their insecurities. You can understand why they behave the way they do, and still decide. I don't want this person in my life. That isn't cruel. That's a boundary. Because sometimes, the smartest thing an intelligent person can do, is stop trying to solve the person, and start protecting themselves. And if you want to understand the psychology behind why smart people often overthink everything, watch this video next. Have you ever noticed how some people can ruin your entire mood in just 2 minutes? Your day starts off great. Your coffee tastes good, the weather feels nice, and everything seems to be going fine. Then suddenly, you get a message from a toxic person or run into them somewhere, and just like that, your mind gets stuck on whatever they said. The funny thing is that toxic people are everywhere. They can be friends, relatives, co-workers, neighbors, or sometimes even people in your own family. Most of us make one big mistake when dealing with them. We think that if we explain ourselves, prove them wrong, or come up with the perfect comeback, the problem will disappear. But the truth is, that almost never works. Toxic people usually aren't looking for solutions, they're looking for reactions. Think about it. Someone says something rude about you. You get angry, defend yourself, and before you know it, you're trapped in an argument that seems to have no ending. Later that night, you're still replaying the conversation in your head. You think about what you should have said, why they acted that way, and how you'll respond next time. Meanwhile, they're probably sitting comfortably watching TV without a single worry. This is something smart people understand very quickly. They know that not every comment deserves a response. If a random stranger walked up to you and said, "You're an alien," you probably wouldn't spend an hour trying to prove them wrong. You'd laugh and move on. Yet when a toxic person says something ridiculous, we often treat their words as if they're some official truth. Smart people don't do that. They realize that not everything deserves a place in their mind. Another thing smart people learn is emotional distance. This doesn't mean becoming cold or uncaring. It simply means not giving someone else the remote control to your emotions. Imagine having a coworker who complains about everything. You do a good job, they complain. You help them, they complain. You stay quiet, and they still complain. Trying to please people like that is like pouring water into a bucket with no bottom. No matter how much effort you put in, it never feels enough. At some point, smart people stop asking, "How can I make this person happy?" and start asking, "Why am I giving this person so much power over my peace?" That small shift changes everything. Smart people also understand that toxic people love drama. For them, drama isn't a problem, it's entertainment. Someone replied late to a text. Drama. Someone disagreed with them. Drama. Someone forgot to compliment them. More drama. And sooner or later, they'll try to pull you into it too. But smart people know a simple truth: you can't lose a game you refuse to play. That's why they don't jump into every argument, every gossip session, or every unnecessary conflict. Sometimes they simply smile, stay calm, and move on. They understand that protecting their peace is more important than proving a point. Now let's talk about boundaries. Many people think saying no is rude, but smart people know that no is actually a superpower. If you spend your life trying to make everyone happy, you'll eventually make yourself miserable. Smart people know when to help and when to step back. They understand that not every problem is theirs to solve. And here's the interesting part: the moment you start setting boundaries, toxic people often get upset. They'll say things like, "You've changed," or "You're not the same person anymore." And honestly, sometimes that's a good thing, because growth looks like change to people who benefited from the old version of you. Another habit smart people give up is trying to win every argument. The reality is that many people don't actually want to understand the truth, they just want to be right. Arguing with them is like giving a motivational speech to a wall. You can keep talking, but nothing is going to change. That's why smart people protect their energy. Instead of asking, "How do I win this argument?" they ask, "Is this argument even worth my peace?" Most of the time, the answer is no. They choose peace over pointless conflict because they know their time and energy are too valuable to waste. Finally, smart people focus on themselves instead of trying to change toxic people. They understand that they can't control someone else's behavior, but they can control their own response. So instead of wasting energy on people who refuse to change, they invest that energy into improving their own lives. They learn new skills, build confidence, take care of their mental health, and spend more time around people who bring positivity into their lives. Their focus shifts from fixing toxic people to becoming the best version of themselves. At the end of the day, the smartest way to deal with toxic people is surprisingly simple. Don't react to every comment. Don't fight every battle. Don't let someone else control your emotions. Protect your peace, set clear boundaries, and choose carefully where you invest your energy. Because real intelligence isn't about winning every fight. It's about knowing which fights aren't worth fighting in the first place. And here's something most people realize too late: the moment you stop reacting to toxic people, you take away the very thing they wanted from you all along. But here's a question that might surprise you. What if the toxic person ruining your peace isn't someone else? What if it's a habit, a mindset, or a behavior you've been carrying for years without even realizing it? Stay with me, because what you're about to discover next could completely change the way you see yourself and the people around you. Have you ever looked at someone and thought, why are they still in that relationship? You can clearly see they're being hurt, constantly stressed, and unhappy, yet they stay. What's even more confusing is that these are often good, smart, and kind people. So why don't they just leave? The answer is much deeper than most people think, and once you understand it, you might never judge someone in a toxic relationship the same way again. Imagine buying a beautiful plant. In the beginning, it looks healthy, green, and full of life. But after some time, it starts dying. Most people wouldn't immediately throw it away. They would water it more, move it to a better spot, and try everything possible to save it because they remember how beautiful it looked when they first got it. Relationships often work the same way. Most toxic relationships don't begin with pain. If they did, nobody would stay. They usually start with attention, affection, excitement, and promises. The person makes you feel special, loved, and valued. Your brain stores those memories, so when things become painful later, a part of you keeps hoping the good version of that person will come back. It's similar to watching your favorite TV show. The latest episodes are disappointing, but you keep watching because the first season was amazing. You keep telling yourself, maybe the next episode will be better. People in toxic relationships often tell themselves the same thing. Maybe they'll change. Maybe things will improve. Maybe they didn't mean it. Unfortunately, sometimes that maybe turns into months or even years of suffering. Psychology offers an interesting explanation for this. There's a concept called intermittent reinforcement. It sounds complicated, but you've probably experienced it before. Think about a slot machine. You don't win every time. In fact, you lose most of the time. But every now and then, you get a reward, and that small win keeps you playing. Toxic relationships often operate in a similar way. One day the person ignores you, criticizes you, or treats you badly. The next day they're loving, caring, and affectionate. The brain becomes attached to those rare moments of kindness because they're unpredictable. Strangely enough, unpredictable rewards can be more powerful than consistent ones. It's like when your internet connection keeps disconnecting and reconnecting. When it works perfectly, you barely notice it, but when it's unreliable, it suddenly becomes the center of your attention. Another reason good people stay is because they've been taught that love requires sacrifice. They've heard that real love means never giving up, always being patient, and fighting through difficult times. Those ideas sound noble, and sometimes they are. The problem is that they can become dangerous when applied to the wrong situation. Patience is a wonderful quality, but patience with someone who repeatedly hurts you isn't always a virtue. Sometimes it's self-destruction disguised as loyalty. Many kind people also stay because they focus on a person's potential rather than their reality. They see who that person could become instead of who they are today. It's like buying a broken bicycle because you imagine how great it will be once it's repaired. Years later, you're still walking because the bicycle never changed. Potential is not reality, yet countless relationships survive on potential rather than truth. Fear also plays a major role. Not always fear of the other person, but fear of being alone, fear of starting over, fear of losing shared memories, and fear of stepping into an uncertain future. The human brain often prefers familiar pain over unfamiliar uncertainty. Even when something hurts, at least it's predictable. At least you know what tomorrow will look like. That predictability can make leaving feel far more frightening than staying. Here's something most people don't realize. Staying in a toxic relationship doesn't necessarily mean someone is weak. In fact, many people stay because they're incredibly strong. They keep trying, forgiving, and believing. They continue hoping things will improve. The problem is that strength without boundaries can become a trap. Imagine carrying a heavy backpack. At first, your strength allows you to carry it, but eventually the weight starts damaging your back. The solution isn't becoming stronger. The solution is putting the backpack down. Sometimes walking away isn't weakness. Sometimes it's wisdom. The biggest lesson is that love should not feel like a constant rescue mission. You shouldn't have to save someone every day just to receive basic respect and kindness. Healthy relationships aren't perfect. People make mistakes, disagreements happen, and everyone has bad days. But trust, respect, and kindness should be the foundation, not occasional rewards. If someone only treats you well once in a while, that's not love at its best, it's confusion at its worst. So the next time you see someone stuck in a toxic relationship, try not to judge them. What seems obvious from the outside often feels completely different on the inside. And if any part of this sounds familiar to you, remember this: you can love someone deeply and still recognize that they're not good for you. Those two truths can exist at the same time. Sometimes the strongest act of self-love isn't holding on. Sometimes it's letting go. And that may be one of the hardest, yet most important, decisions a person ever makes. What's the biggest reason people stay in toxic relationships? Love, hope, fear, or something else? Let me know in the comments, and subscribe for more.
Have you ever felt like no matter what you do, it's never enough? Maybe you make one small mistake, and suddenly your mind starts telling you that you're a failure. If that sounds familiar, you're not alone. Today, let's talk about the psychology of people who hate themselves and why it happens. The strange thing is that nobody is born hating themselves. That feeling usually develops over time. It can come from constant criticism, being compared to others, rejection, or simply feeling like you're never good enough. At first, these negative messages come from other people, but after hearing them for long enough, they become your own thoughts, Once your mind accepts a negative story about you, it starts looking for proof everywhere. If 10 people compliment you and 1 person criticizes you, which comment do you remember? Most likely the negative one. Our brains are surprisingly good at holding on to criticism while ignoring praise. People who struggle with self-hatred also tend to expect perfection from themselves. They feel like they should always be productive, confident, successful, and never make mistakes. But that's impossible. Think about your best friend for a second. Would you expect them to be perfect? What makes self-hatred even trickier is that it often disguises itself as self-improvement. People think they're being hard on themselves because they want to grow. But there's a huge difference between pushing yourself forward and constantly tearing yourself down. One helps you improve. The other slowly destroys your confidence. The biggest mistake people make is confusing what they do with who they are. Instead of saying, "I made a mistake," they say, "I am a mistake." Instead of saying, "I failed this time," they say, "I'm a failure." But a mistake is something you do, not something you are. To hear something else most people don't realize. That embarrassing moment you still think about? The awkward thing you said years ago? There's a good chance nobody else even remembers it. Most people are too busy thinking about their own lives. But our minds love replaying old mistakes as if they happened yesterday. That's why self-hatred feels so real. Not because it's true, but because it's repeated over and over again. So the next time your inner voice tells you that you're not good enough, ask yourself one simple question. Would I say this to someone I care about? If the answer is no, maybe you shouldn't say it to yourself either. Because the truth is, you don't need to be perfect to have value. You don't need to win every battle to deserve respect. Sometimes, the person who needs your kindness the most is you. If this video made you see yourself a little differently, don't forget to like and subscribe. And before you leave, tell me in the comments, what's one negative thought about yourself that you're ready to let go?
Have you ever looked around and felt like everyone else got some secret instruction manual for life except you? Maybe you've sat in a group of people and wondered, why do I feel so different from everyone here? Maybe you don't enjoy the same things most people enjoy. Maybe you think differently, act differently, or simply feel like you don't belong anywhere. And the strange part is that even when you're surrounded by people, you can still feel completely alone. If that sounds familiar, keep watching, because the reason you feel— most people assume feeling different is a bad thing. They think it means something is wrong with them. But imagine for a moment that every person in the world loved the same food, wore the same clothes, had the same hobbies, and thought exactly the same way. Life would be incredibly boring. It would be like living in a world filled with copies of the same person. Yet when we notice our own differences, we often treat them like flaws instead. One reason this happens is because humans are naturally wired to fit in. Thousands of years ago, being rejected by your group could be dangerous, so our brains developed a strong need for acceptance. Whenever you feel different, your brain quietly asks, "Do I still belong here?" The funny thing is that your brain doesn't care whether the difference is good or bad. It only notices that you're not exactly like everyone else, and then it starts overthinking everything. One awkward conversation can suddenly become a 3-hour mental replay session before you— Another reason you might feel different is that you're more self-aware than the people around you. Some people move through life without questioning much, while others constantly think about who they are, why they do certain things, and what they truly want from life. If you're someone who asks deeper questions, it's easy to feel disconnected from people who never stop to think about those things. It's like being the only person in a room who notices a strange sound. The sound was always there, but you're the one paying. Your life experiences also play a huge role in shaping how you see the world. Two people can be the same age, live in the same city, and go to the same school, yet have completely different lives. One person may grow up feeling understood and supported, while another grows up feeling ignored or misunderstood. These experiences shape the way we think, feel, and interact with others. Sometimes the reason you feel different isn't because you're strange. It's because your journey has— Many people also make the mistake of comparing their inner world to everyone else's outer appearance. You see someone laughing with friends and assume they have everything figured out. You see someone who seems confident and assume they've never doubted themselves. But you don't know what's happening inside their mind. The truth is that many of the people who seem the most normal are asking the same questions you are. They're just better at hiding it. If humans could read each other's thoughts for a day, we probably do. What's interesting is that many creative people, innovators, and deep thinkers spent years feeling different. They didn't fit neatly into every group because they saw things differently. They questioned ideas that others accepted without thinking. At first, that made them feel isolated. Later, it became their greatest strength. The qualities that made them feel out of place were often the same qualities that helped them create some. Of course, feeling different isn't always easy. There will be moments when you wish fitting in came naturally. There will be days when you wonder why connecting with people seems effortless for everyone else. But it's important to remember that being different and being alone are not the same thing. There are millions of people in the world who feel exactly the way you do. The only reason it seems rare is because most people never talk about it. Everyone hides their doubts, which makes everyone else think. So if you've spent years asking yourself, why am I different, maybe it's time to ask a better question. Instead of wondering what's wrong with you, ask yourself what your differences can teach you. The curiosity, sensitivity, imagination, and unique way of thinking that sometimes make you feel disconnected could be the very things that make you special. Not everyone is meant to see the world. The next time you feel different from everyone around you, remember this: different does not mean broken. Different does not mean less valuable. And different certainly doesn't mean you don't belong. Sometimes it simply means you're seeing the world through your own unique lens, and that may be one of your greatest strengths. So what do you think? Have you ever felt different from everyone around you? Let me know in the comments below, and if you enjoyed this video, don't forget to like, subscribe, and join us for more fascinating psychology. At 8:42 on a Friday night, Ryan picked up his phone. The screen was completely silent. No new messages. No missed calls. No notifications. For a few seconds, he simply stared at it. Not because he was waiting for someone to text him, but because he suddenly realized something. 3 years ago, this never happened. His phone never stayed quiet. There were endless group chats, late-night calls, weekend plans, birthday invitations, and friends who always seemed to need him. Back then, it felt like his life was full of people. But now, everything had changed. The strangest part was that he hadn't argued with anyone. Nobody had betrayed him. Nobody had told him to leave. People had simply drifted away. Or at least, that's what he believed. That night, he asked himself a question that millions of people quietly ask every single day: why does it feel like the older I get, the fewer people stay? Maybe you've asked yourself the same question. Maybe your phone is filled with hundreds of contacts, yet if your life completely fell apart today, you wouldn't know who to call first. Or maybe you've slowly stopped calling anyone at all. Not because you hate people. Not because you think you're better than everyone else. But because somehow, being alone has started to feel easier than being surrounded by people who don't truly understand you. Most people believe this happens because intelligent people eventually become antisocial. But psychology tells a very different story, and if you stay until the end of this video, you may discover that the real reason has almost nothing to do with intelligence itself. This isn't really a story about being smart. It's a story about what happens when the way you see the world quietly begins to change. Ryan didn't notice it at first. Change almost never arrives all at once. It appears in tiny moments that seem too small to matter. One evening, his friends invited him out for dinner. The conversation felt exactly the same as it always had. Someone was talking about a new car. Someone else was gossiping about a relationship. Another friend was laughing about something that happened at work. Everyone around the table seemed to be having a great time. Ryan smiled too, but for the first time, he felt like he was sitting in the room without actually being part of the conversation. An entire hour passed, and he realized he hadn't said a single sentence that truly meant something to him. On the drive home, one question refused to leave his mind. Have I changed, or have I simply started wanting something different? He had no idea that this one question would slowly change the way he looked at his friendships, his life, and even himself. Because what Ryan was about to discover is something psychologists have been trying to explain for decades. And once you understand it, you may never look at loneliness the same way again. Ryan couldn't stop thinking about that night. It wasn't the silence that bothered him. It was the strange feeling that he no longer belonged in conversations he once enjoyed. A few weeks later, one of his oldest friends invited him to a birthday party. He almost said no, but eventually decided to go, hoping the feeling would disappear. It didn't. The music was loud. People were laughing. Some were recording videos for social media. Others were comparing salaries, talking about expensive cars, or gossiping about people who weren't even there. Everyone seemed to be having a great time, but Ryan quietly walked onto the balcony and stared at the city lights instead. A few minutes later, one of his closest friends walked over and smiled. "You've become really quiet these days," he said. Ryan smiled back. "Yeah, maybe I have." His friend laughed and replied, "You've changed." That one sentence stayed in Ryan's mind for days. Had he really changed? Or had he simply stopped pretending to enjoy conversations that no longer meant anything to him? This is where psychology becomes fascinating. As people grow emotionally and intellectually, their minds often begin to crave depth instead of constant stimulation. The conversations that once felt exciting can suddenly feel repetitive. Endless gossip starts feeling meaningless. Competing to impress other people becomes exhausting. And being surrounded by dozens of people no longer guarantees that you feel connected to anyone. The problem is that this change is often misunderstood. From the outside, people assume you've become arrogant. They think you're distancing yourself because you believe you're better than everyone else. But inside, something very different is happening. You're not searching for more people. You're searching for more meaningful conversations. You're looking for people who make you think, people who make you feel understood, people who don't just fill the silence, but add value to it. A few days later, Ryan opened an old group chat that had once been active every single day. He slowly scrolled through hundreds of messages. After a while, he noticed something he had never paid attention to before. Almost every conversation followed the same pattern. Someone was complaining. Someone was criticizing another person. Someone was trying to prove they were more successful. The topics changed, but the feeling never did. For the first time, Ryan understood why he had quietly stopped replying months ago. It wasn't because he disliked his friends. It was because he no longer recognized himself in those conversations. But that realization raised an even bigger question. If intelligent people are simply looking for deeper connections, then why do so many of them end up feeling lonely instead? The answer has very little to do with the people around them, and almost everything to do with the invisible habits they slowly develop without even noticing. The answer surprised Ryan more than anything else. Loneliness hadn't entered his life overnight. He had been building it himself, one small decision at a time. Every time he thought, "They probably won't understand me," he chose to stay silent. Every time someone invited him out, he replied, "Maybe next time." Every time he wanted to share what he was really feeling, he convinced himself that it wasn't worth explaining. Without realizing it, he wasn't just protecting his peace anymore. He was slowly protecting his isolation. Psychologists have noticed an interesting pattern. People who value deep and meaningful relationships often become more selective about who they allow into their lives. There's nothing wrong with being selective. The problem begins when being selective slowly turns into shutting everyone out. That's the moment when loneliness quietly takes the place of peace. One rainy evening, after work, Ryan stopped at a small coffee shop. An elderly man was sitting alone by the window, calmly reading a book. There was something peaceful about him. After a brief conversation, Ryan finally asked the question that had been on his mind for months. Don't you ever feel lonely? The old man smiled, closed his book, and looked out the window before answering. Sometimes, but I've learned something that changed my life. Ryan waited quietly. Intelligence doesn't make people lonely. The belief that no one will ever understand you, does. For a moment, Ryan didn't know what to say. Because deep down, he realized the old man was right. He had spent years hoping that someone would understand him, while never giving anyone the chance to truly know him. That single conversation changed the way he looked at relationships forever. He stopped chasing large circles of friends. Instead, he invested his time in a few genuine connections. He stopped trying to fit into every conversation, and started looking for people who were curious, honest, and willing to listen. Slowly, his life became quieter than before. But this time, it no longer felt empty, because Ryan finally understood something that many people spend their entire lives misunderstanding. Being alone is not the same as being lonely. You can stand in the middle of a crowded room, and still feel completely alone. And you can sit beside just one person, who truly understands you, and never feel lonely at all. So if you've noticed that your circle has become smaller over the years, don't immediately assume that something is wrong with you. Maybe you've simply outgrown shallow relationships. Maybe you've started valuing peace over popularity. But remember this, don't let your search for meaningful people become an excuse to stop meeting people altogether. Stay open. Stay curious. Because the right people rarely enter your life with loud introductions. They arrive quietly, one honest conversation at a time. If this video changed the way you think about loneliness, make sure to subscribe to PsyCoreTheory. Because sometimes the biggest changes in our lives don't begin when we find new people. They begin when we finally understand ourselves. Have you ever wondered if someone secretly likes you, but they're doing everything they can to hide it? Maybe they act completely normal around everyone else, yet something feels different whenever they're around you. They smile a little more, find random reasons to start a conversation, or somehow always seem to notice you first. These moments might seem like simple coincidences, but psychology suggests that attraction often reveals itself through subtle behaviors long before someone is ready to admit their feelings. The human brain is fascinating. When we genuinely like someone, our emotions begin to influence our behavior without us even realizing it. Small changes in the way we speak, move, smile, and pay attention can quietly reveal what our words are trying to hide. That's why psychologists often study patterns of behavior instead of relying on what people say. While no single sign can prove that someone is attracted to you, several signs appearing together over time can tell a surprisingly accurate story. In today's video, we'll explore 7 psychological signs that someone may be secretly attracted to you. Some of these behaviors are so natural that the person showing them may not even realize they're doing it. So, if you've ever been curious about whether someone likes you but is too shy to say it, stay with me until the end, because the final sign is one that most people completely overlook. Sign number 1, they always find reasons to talk to you. One of the earliest signs of attraction is surprisingly simple. They keep finding reasons to start a conversation with you. It may begin with small questions they already know the answer to, random text messages, or casual comments that don't really need a response. At first, these conversations may seem ordinary, but when they happen again and again, psychology suggests there could be something deeper behind them. When we're attracted to someone, our brain naturally looks for opportunities to interact with that person. Psychologists describe this as proximity-seeking behavior. The goal isn't necessarily the conversation itself, it's the emotional connection that comes from spending time together. That's why someone who secretly likes you may create little excuses just to hear your voice, make you smile, or simply stay connected for a few extra moments. Of course, some people are naturally friendly and enjoy talking to everyone. That's why it's important not to judge attraction based on one conversation alone. Instead, notice the pattern. Do they usually start the conversation first? Do they reply unusually quickly? Do they seem disappointed when the interaction ends? If these behaviors happen consistently, it may be because talking to you has become something their brain genuinely looks forward to. Sign number 2, their body language changes around you. People can carefully choose their words, but controlling body language is much more difficult. In fact, many of our physical reactions happen automatically, without any conscious effort. That's why body language is often considered one of the most honest forms of communication. Imagine someone chatting comfortably with friends. They're relaxed, confident, and behaving normally. Then you walk into the room. Suddenly, they sit up straighter, adjust their clothes, fix their hair, smile a little more, or naturally turn their body in your direction. These small actions may seem insignificant, but together they often reveal that your presence has captured their attention. Another fascinating behavior is something psychologists call the chameleon effect. This happens when people unconsciously begin copying the body language of someone they feel emotionally connected to. You cross your arms, and a few moments later they do the same. You lean forward while speaking, and they naturally lean forward too. They aren't copying you on purpose. Their brain is simply trying to build a stronger sense of connection without them even realizing it. Body language alone can never confirm attraction. However, when these unconscious movements appear alongside several other signs, they become much more meaningful. Sometimes, the body quietly reveals emotions long before the person is ready to express them with words. Sign number 3, they remember the smallest details about you. Think about the last conversation you had with someone you barely knew. Chances are, you don't remember every little detail they shared. That's because our brain naturally filters out information that doesn't seem personally important. But when we're emotionally interested in someone, something changes. Their words suddenly become more meaningful, and our brain starts paying much closer attention than usual. Have you ever been surprised when someone remembered your favorite coffee, your birthday, the name of your pet, or a random story you told weeks or even months ago? You may have completely forgotten that conversation, but they didn't. To them, those small details mattered. Psychology explains this through the connection between emotion and memory. When we feel emotionally attracted to someone, the brain gives more importance to information related to that person. It isn't because they're trying to memorize everything you say. Their brain simply treats your words as more valuable than everyone else's. This is why people who secretly like someone often remember the little things that others overlook. They remember what makes you laugh, the music you enjoy, your future goals, or even the smallest preferences you've mentioned only once. It's one of the quietest signs of attraction because it doesn't require grand gestures. Instead, it shows that you've been occupying their attention long after the conversation ended. Of course, having a good memory doesn't automatically mean someone is attracted to you. Some people naturally remember details about everyone. But if this happens together with several other signs, it becomes much more meaningful. Consistent attention is rarely accidental. Sign number 4, they keep looking at you, then quickly look away. Eye contact is one of the most powerful forms of nonverbal communication. Before people express attraction through words, their eyes often reveal what they're feeling. Have you ever caught someone looking at you from across the room, only for them to quickly look away the moment your eyes met? Many people assume it's just coincidence, but psychology suggests there's often more happening beneath the surface. When we're attracted to someone, our attention is naturally drawn toward them. We enjoy watching their expressions, their smile, and the way they interact with others. But at the same time, being caught staring can feel embarrassing. This creates a small internal conflict. One part of the brain wants to keep looking because it enjoys seeing the person, while another part fears being noticed and possibly rejected. That's why many people instinctively break eye contact the moment they're caught. You may also notice that this happens repeatedly throughout the day. They glance at you during conversations, meetings, or social gatherings without even realizing how often they're doing it. Sometimes they aren't staring because they're trying to be obvious. They're simply drawn to you without thinking about it. Their attention keeps returning to you naturally, almost like a habit. However, eye contact alone is never enough to prove attraction. Some people maintain strong eye contact because they're confident, while others avoid it because they're naturally shy. But when repeated eye contact appears alongside meaningful conversations, genuine smiles, remembered details, and other psychological signs, it becomes a much stronger clue that their feelings may be deeper than simple friendship. Sign number 5, they smile differently around you. A smile may seem like one of the simplest human expressions, but psychology suggests that not all smiles mean the same thing. We smile out of politeness, we smile when we're happy, and sometimes we even smile to hide our emotions. However, when someone is genuinely attracted to another person, their smile often becomes more natural and much harder to control. Have you ever noticed someone whose entire face seems to brighten the moment you walk into the room? Before you've even said a word, they're already smiling. It isn't the short, polite smile people give to strangers. Instead, it's warmer, more genuine, and often reaches their eyes. Psychologists refer to this as a genuine emotional smile because it involves facial muscles that are difficult to activate intentionally. In other words, it's much harder to fake. This happens because attraction activates the brain's reward system. Simply seeing someone we like can trigger positive emotions, making us feel happier without any conscious effort. That's why people often smile naturally when they're around someone they feel emotionally connected to. They may not even realize they're doing it, but their facial expressions reveal what their words never do. Of course, some people naturally smile at everyone. A friendly personality should never be mistaken for attraction. The real difference lies in consistency. Does their smile seem brighter when they're with you than when they're with others? Does their mood noticeably improve the moment you arrive? If the answer is yes, this behavior may be revealing feelings they're trying to keep hidden. Sign number 6, they become slightly nervous around you. Many people believe that attraction makes someone appear more confident, but psychology often shows the opposite. When we truly care about someone's opinion, we become much more aware of our own behavior. Suddenly, we start worrying about saying the wrong thing, making a bad impression, or being judged. This increased self-awareness often creates small signs of nervousness that are difficult to hide. You might notice that someone who is usually calm and confident begins speaking faster whenever they're talking to you. They may laugh more than usual, forget what they were about to say, stumble over simple words, or become unusually quiet. Others may keep adjusting their clothes, touching their hair, playing with their hands, or avoiding standing completely still. These behaviors are rarely intentional. They're simply the brain's response to emotional excitement mixed with uncertainty. Attraction creates a unique combination of happiness and anxiety. On one hand, the person enjoys being around you. On the other hand, they desperately want you to like them back. That emotional pressure makes even confident people behave differently than they normally would. Their brain becomes focused on making a good impression, which often leads to small, unconscious mistakes. However, nervousness alone should never be taken as proof of attraction. Some people are naturally shy, while others become anxious in almost every social situation. But when nervous behavior appears together with genuine smiles, repeated eye contact, remembered details, and a strong desire to spend time with you, psychology suggests there's a much greater chance that those feelings are more than simple friendship. So far, we've explored 6 psychological signs that someone may secretly be attracted to you. Each sign tells only a small part of the story, but together they begin to reveal a clear pattern. In the final part, we'll explore the strongest and most overlooked sign of all, one that people display almost automatically without even realizing it. Sign number 7, they always find ways to stay close to you. The final sign is perhaps the most powerful of all because it often happens without any conscious thought. Have you ever noticed that someone always seems to end up near you? They choose the seat beside you when there are plenty of other empty chairs. They stand close to you during group conversations. They walk beside you after meetings or classes, and somehow, no matter where you are, they always seem to appear nearby. At first, it may feel like a coincidence, but when it happens repeatedly, psychology suggests there may be something much deeper behind it. Human beings naturally seek physical proximity to people they feel emotionally connected to. Psychologists often explain this through the mere exposure effect, which suggests that the more time we spend around someone, the stronger our sense of familiarity and emotional connection becomes. When a person is secretly attracted to you, their brain begins associating your presence with positive emotions. Without even realizing it, they start creating opportunities to be around you more often because being close to you simply feels rewarding. What's interesting is that they may not even notice this behavior themselves. They aren't necessarily making a conscious decision to follow you or stay close. Instead, their brain naturally guides them toward the person they enjoy being around the most. This is why you may repeatedly find them joining the same conversations, choosing the same lunch table, volunteering for the same activities, or finding small excuses to spend a little more time with you. However, it's important to remember that physical proximity alone doesn't always mean attraction. Friends, classmates, co-workers, and family members also spend time together for many different reasons. But when someone consistently chooses to be near you while also showing the other signs we've discussed, starting conversations, remembering small details, making frequent eye contact, smiling differently, and becoming slightly nervous, the overall pattern becomes much more meaningful. So, what does psychology really tell us? The biggest mistake people make is looking for one magical sign that proves someone is attracted to them. In reality, attraction doesn't usually reveal itself through one dramatic moment. Instead, it quietly appears through a collection of small, consistent behaviors that repeat over time. Someone may smile because they're friendly. They may remember your birthday because they have a good memory. They may look at you simply because you were speaking. But when several of these behaviors happen together, again and again, the chances are much higher that there's genuine emotional attraction beneath the surface. At the same time, it's equally important not to jump to conclusions. Human behavior is incredibly complex. Personality, confidence, culture, social anxiety, and life experiences can all influence the way people act. That's why psychology encourages us to observe patterns instead of making assumptions based on a single action. The next time you wonder whether someone secretly likes you, don't focus on one smile or one glance. Instead, pay attention to the complete picture. Notice how often they choose to talk to you, how much they remember about you, how their body language changes, and whether they naturally find reasons to stay close to you. Sometimes, the smallest actions reveal emotions that words never can. If you enjoyed learning about the psychology behind attraction and human behavior, don't forget to subscribe to PsyCoreTheory. Every week, we explore fascinating psychological concepts, hidden social behaviors, and the science behind the human mind in a simple and engaging way. Now I'd love to hear from you. Which of these 7 signs do you think is the most accurate? Or have you ever experienced someone showing several of these behaviors without realizing it? Share your thoughts in the comments below. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next video. Have you ever had that strange feeling that someone treats you differently, but you just can't prove it? Maybe they always seem to notice you first in a crowded room. Maybe they remember tiny details you don't even remember telling them. Or every time you accidentally make eye contact, they suddenly become very interested in their phone. Coincidence? Maybe. But maybe your brain has been missing some surprisingly obvious clues. The truth is, people are much worse at hiding their feelings than they think. We might control our words, but our eyes, body language, and little habits often reveal what we're really feeling. So in this video, we're going to explore 15 psychological signs that someone secretly likes you. Some of these signs are backed by psychology, others come from everyday human behavior, and together they can help you notice feelings that are never spoken out loud. And who knows, by the end of this video, you might have one specific person in mind. Let's get started. One of the biggest signs that someone secretly likes you is that they remember the smallest details about you. Think about it. You casually mention your favorite coffee, your birthday, the name of your dog, or a movie you loved as a kid, and weeks later they still remember it. Meanwhile, you can barely remember what you had for breakfast yesterday. That's because our brains naturally pay more attention to information connected to people we emotionally care about. When someone likes you, even random little facts about your life become important to them. It's not because they have an amazing memory. It's because, without realizing it, their brain has decided that you're someone worth remembering. And honestly, that's pretty adorable, unless they remember what color socks you wore 6 months ago. At that point, they either have a massive crush on you or they should probably work for the FBI. Another common sign is that they always seem to find an excuse to talk to you. Sometimes they'll ask questions they could easily answer themselves. They'll text you about something completely random, reply to your stories, send you a funny meme, or start conversations that don't really have a purpose. Have you ever received a message that starts with, "Hey, I wanted to ask you something," and then somehow turns into a 30-minute conversation about absolutely nothing? That's because for someone who secretly likes you, the conversation itself is the goal. Psychology tells us that interacting with someone we like activates the brain's reward system, making even simple conversations feel enjoyable. So instead of waiting for the perfect reason, they create tiny reasons just to spend a little more time talking to you. Their eyes can also reveal far more than their words ever will. Have you noticed that whenever something funny happens in a group, one particular person immediately looks at you to see your reaction? That's not random. When we care about someone, we naturally want to know what they're thinking and whether they're enjoying the same moment. Even in crowded places, our eyes tend to search for the person we're emotionally focused on. And then there's the classic moment, you catch them looking at you, and the second your eyes meet, they instantly look away as if they were studying the wall behind you the whole time. Another interesting sign is that they suddenly become a little awkward whenever you're around. It's funny because people often imagine that someone who likes them will always act confident. In reality, the opposite is surprisingly common. Someone who normally speaks smoothly starts stumbling over their words. They laugh a little too much at your jokes, even the terrible ones. They keep fixing their hair, adjusting their clothes, or fidgeting with whatever they're holding. Sometimes they even say something slightly embarrassing and then spend the rest of the day replaying that moment in their head. Attraction creates emotional pressure because we genuinely want the other person to like us. That pressure can make even the most confident people act a little nervous, and ironically, that awkwardness often becomes one of the clearest signs that their feelings are real. There's also something psychologists call mirroring, and it's one of the most fascinating signs of hidden attraction. During conversations, people naturally copy the behavior of someone they feel connected to, usually without even realizing it. If you lean forward while talking, they slowly do the same. If you smile, they smile. If you pick up your drink, a few moments later they reach for theirs too. This isn't something people plan to do. It's an unconscious way our brains build connection and trust. Of course, copying one movement doesn't automatically mean someone has a crush on you, but if you consistently notice them matching your posture, expressions, or energy whenever you're together, it becomes a very interesting clue. Sometimes the strongest feelings aren't expressed through dramatic romantic gestures. They're hidden inside tiny actions that happen so naturally the other person doesn't even realize they're doing them. Another sign that often goes unnoticed is that they somehow always manage to be around you. No matter where you are, they seem to appear. If you're at school, they choose the seat nearby. At work, they somehow end up taking their break around the same time as you. If you're with a group of friends, they naturally drift closer to where you're standing. Now, this doesn't mean they're following you around like a detective in a movie. Most of the time, it's completely unconscious. Psychology suggests that we're naturally drawn to people we enjoy being around. Being physically close to someone we like makes us feel more comfortable, even if we don't realize we're doing it. So if someone repeatedly seems to end up in the same places as you without any obvious reason, it could be more than just coincidence. Another clue is that they laugh at almost everything you say. And let's be honest, not every joke we make deserves an award. Sometimes we say something that's barely funny, yet they laugh like you've just performed the greatest comedy show of the year. That's because when we like someone, our brain tends to see them in a more positive light. Their jokes seem funnier, their stories seem more interesting, and simply spending time with them feels enjoyable. It isn't about pretending. They genuinely enjoy your company, so even your terrible jokes somehow become entertaining. We've all seen that one friend who suddenly becomes the funniest person in the room the moment their crush walks in. One of the strongest psychological signs is that they become genuinely curious about your life. They don't just ask, "How was your day?" and immediately change the subject. They actually listen. They ask follow-up questions. They remember what you told them last week and check how things turned out. If you mentioned you had an important interview, exam, or meeting, they'll ask you about it later. Most casual conversations stay on the surface, but someone who secretly likes you wants to know what makes you happy, what stresses you out, and what your dreams are. They're not collecting information because they're nosy. They're trying to understand the person behind the conversation. Another interesting sign is that they notice changes that almost nobody else notices. Maybe you got a new haircut, started wearing glasses, changed your watch, or even wore a different shade of your favorite color. While everyone else carries on as usual, they're the first person to say, "Did you do something different?" That's because our attention naturally focuses on people we're emotionally interested in. We observe them more carefully without even trying. So when someone notices tiny details that everyone else completely misses, it often means you're already taking up more space in their mind than you realize. Finally, pay attention to how they react when other people show interest in you. This doesn't always mean dramatic jealousy like you see in movies. In real life, it's usually much more subtle. Maybe they suddenly become a little quieter when you're talking to someone else. Maybe they jokingly ask, "So, who was that?" Or they seem unusually curious whenever you mention another person's name. Sometimes they even try to join the conversation without realizing why. Psychology tells us that when we value someone's attention, the possibility of losing it can create small feelings of insecurity. Of course, this sign alone doesn't prove anything. Some people are naturally protective or simply curious. But when you combine it with all the other signs we've talked about, it can become another piece of the puzzle. After all, hidden feelings rarely reveal themselves through one big moment. They quietly appear through dozens of small behaviors that, when put together, tell a much bigger story. The next sign is one that people almost never notice. They find little ways to help you, even when you never ask. Maybe they offer to carry something heavy, help you solve a problem, remind you about something important, or simply check if you got home safely. These actions might seem small, but psychology suggests that when we genuinely care about someone, helping them gives us a sense of satisfaction. It's our brain's way of strengthening a connection. The interesting part is that they usually don't expect anything in return. They just like knowing they made your day a little easier. Another powerful sign is that they become noticeably happier when you're around. Have you ever seen someone's face light up the moment you walk into the room? They may have looked bored just seconds ago, but suddenly they're smiling, talking more, and their energy completely changes. This isn't something people can fake for very long. Emotions naturally show up through facial expressions, tone of voice, and body language. When someone secretly likes you, your presence alone can improve their mood without them even realizing why. Here's another fascinating one. They remember your opinions and actually care about them. If they're buying a new phone, choosing clothes, watching a movie, or making a decision, they might ask, "What do you think?" It's not because they can't decide on their own. It's because your opinion has become valuable to them. When someone likes you, your approval starts carrying more emotional weight than the opinions of most other people. They want to know what you think because, somewhere deep down, what you think about them matters too. And then there's the classic sign that almost everyone experiences at some point. Their friends seem to know something before you do. Maybe their friends smile when you walk by. Maybe they tease them whenever you're around. Or maybe they suddenly become suspiciously quiet the moment you join the conversation. Friends are terrible at keeping secrets, especially when someone has a crush. Even if the person is trying their best to hide their feelings, the people closest to them often notice long before anyone else does. Now here's something really important. One or two of these signs don't automatically mean someone is secretly in love with you. Some people are naturally friendly. Some have great memories. Some smile at everyone. That's why psychologists never rely on just one behavior. The real clue is consistency. If you notice several of these signs happening again and again over time, that's when the picture starts becoming much clearer. Attraction isn't usually revealed through one dramatic moment. It's revealed through dozens of tiny behaviors that quietly repeat themselves until they're impossible to ignore. So, did someone pop into your mind while watching this video? Maybe there's one person who remembers everything you say, always finds a reason to text you, looks at you when everyone laughs, gets a little nervous around you, and somehow always ends up standing nearby. If so, maybe their feelings aren't as secret as they think. But here's the question I want you to answer honestly. Have you ever realized someone liked you only after it was too late? Let me know your story in the comments. I read them all, and some of them are honestly better than romantic movies. And if you enjoyed this video, don't forget to subscribe because psychology explains far more about our everyday lives than most people realize. In the next video, we'll uncover another hidden side of human behavior that almost everyone experiences, but very few people understand. Trust me, you won't want to miss that one.
Have you ever noticed that some people get uncomfortable when someone tries to celebrate them? Whether it's a birthday, an achievement, or even a simple compliment, they immediately try to escape the attention. They change the topic, make a joke, or simply say, "It's not a big deal." But why? After all, most people enjoy being appreciated. We all like hearing good things about ourselves. So why do some people seem to hate being celebrated? The answer is one reason is that these people don't see themselves the same way others see them. When people praise them, they focus on their mistakes instead of their success. Imagine someone spends months working hard on a project and finally achieves something impressive. Everyone around them is amazed, but in their own mind, they're still thinking about that one small mistake they made along the way. While others see success, they see imperfections. That's why compliments often feel uncomfortable. Another reason is that some people simply don't enjoy being the center of attention. Think about a birthday party. Everyone is looking at you. People are taking photos, someone starts singing, and another person is recording a video. For many people, that's fun. But for others, it feels like standing under a giant spotlight. They don't hate people, and they don't hate celebrations. They just feel more comfortable when attention isn't focused entirely on them. Interestingly, many people who dislike celebrating themselves are often the same people who love helping others. They're the friends who always listen, the people who remember everyone's birthdays, and the ones who show up when someone needs support. They're comfortable giving appreciation but feel awkward receiving it. It's like a waiter who serves food all day but suddenly doesn't know how to sit down and enjoy a meal. Helping others feels natural to them, but accepting attention feels strange. There's also a deeper reason. Some people connect celebrations with pressure instead of happiness. A birthday isn't just a birthday for them. It's a reminder that another year has passed. While everyone else is thinking about cake and gifts, they're thinking about their goals, their progress, and everything they still want to achieve. Their brain quietly turns a celebration into a yearly life review, and that's not exact. Then there are people who simply value privacy. In a world where many people share every special moment online, some prefer keeping important moments to themselves. Not because they're unhappy and not because they're hiding anything. They just enjoy experiences more when they're private. For them, a peaceful evening with family or a close friend can feel more meaningful than a large celebration with dozens of people. The funny thing is that people who don't like being celebrated are often the people others appreciate the most. They're usually hardworking, reliable, and genuine. They don't constantly seek attention or try to impress everyone around them. They quietly do what needs to be done, and those qualities naturally earn respect. That's why people often want to celebrate them, even when they try to avoid it. One of the biggest misunderstandings is that avoiding celebrations means someone has low confidence. That's not always true. In fact, some of the most confident people don't need constant recognition. Their confidence comes from knowing who they are, not from hearing applause. They don't need everyone to notice them to feel valuable. Of course, sometimes the reason is much simpler. Some people just don't like awkward situations. Let's be honest, sitting in front of a cake while a group of people sings at different speeds can feel a little uncomfortable. One person starts too early, another starts too late, and suddenly you're smiling awkwardly while wondering where you're supposed to look. For some people, avoiding that situation sounds like the perfect birthday gift. So the next time you meet someone who says, please don't make a big deal out of it. Don't assume they're unhappy or antisocial. Maybe they simply enjoy life differently. Maybe they value peace more than attention. Maybe they care more about meaningful moments than public recognition. Or maybe they just don't want to sit through another awkward birthday song at the end of the day. Happiness looks different for different people. Some enjoy being in the spotlight, while others prefer standing quietly in the background. Neither choice is right or wrong. It's simply a different way of experiencing life. So tell me, are you someone who loves celebrations, or are you the type of person who secretly hopes everyone forgets your birthday? Let me know in the comments, and don't forget to subscribe for more.
Thank you for listening. The Psychology Marathon will restart shortly.